Chapter 240. I invented it. You invented it? Yes, a shipwreck was found on the coast of Flower Town and some treasures were salvaged, including a few crystals. I invited a crystal craftsman and a wizard to carve a crystal lamp for me. Then I found that after the crystal was ground into a lens, the two pieces superimposed on each other could magnify the line of sight. The story was naturally a fabricated story, but the Count did not delve into the truth of the story. For him, it was not important how the telescope was invented. What was important was why the telescope could see so far and what other uses it had. No wonder many people say that you have been blessed by the glory of the night in the past year. The Count rubbed the wooden lens of the telescope and said with emotion, "Can you recognize its value? I think it can be used in war. If you can observe the enemy's movements from a distance, it should be of great help. The knight's charge, if you can use the telescope, can capture the local orders of chivalry's movements faster and grasp the most suitable fighter. Its value can be very small or even useless. The large-scale orders of chivalry's charge is a head-on collision, but it can also be very big." The Count was very experienced in the charge all year round. The small orders of chivalry are more mobile and flexible. With the telescope, whether it is a sneak attack or a counter-sneak attack, you can seize the initiative. In yesterday's battle deduction game, if I had a telescope, many of your sneak attack tactics would not work at all. Liszt nodded and then added, "If I used the telescope, I could achieve more brilliant tactical results." Well, there is nothing wrong with that. So the value of the telescope can be very great, and I think it is very suitable to give it to you as a gift. You have grown up. The Count sighed again, his eyes full of relief, but he quickly restrained it. The telescope is of great significance and its secrets need to be protected. It must not be known by outsiders. So far, I am probably the only one who can understand the secrets inside the telescope. Liszt suddenly remembered something. Oh, by the way, the crystal craftsman Brad, if he has the heart, he should be able to understand the principle of the telescope. After all, he was the one who made the lens. Then, this crystal craftsman must not be left alone. How about you give him and his family to me? As for the theory behind the telescope, I can immediately present it to Tulip Castle. Liszt had an idea and said. As for Brad's family, they were freedmen, which was meaningless. If the Count wanted to arrange someone to go to the Flower Town, then no one could defy him. Of course, the Count would not bother with such a trivial matter. I'll let Jacob deal with it later. Jacob is the Earl's territorial advisor. Satisfied with the telescope, the Count did not wait for Liszt to open his mouth and took the initiative to give more benefits. I heard that you got 3,000 caddies of iron ingots from Levis? The Count was well aware of the little tricks between his sons, so he said it so calmly, but it was not without the intention of beating him up. Because Levis and Liszt never played with Lytton. Such a clear estrangement was a situation that the Count did not want to see. They were all his sons. Yes, I have improved the process of ordinary fermented wine and brewed a semi-finished liquor. I hope to cooperate with my brother to sell it. 3,000 caddies of iron ingots is a little gift from my brother. You can come up with the technology of liquor, which shows that you are not only blessed by the glory of the night, but also have a big picture and long-term planning. I am full of expectations for your future. I will give you 10,000 caddies of iron ingots from the spoils of war as compensation for the telescope technology. The Count was generous. Liszt was very excited. Thank you, Lord Father. As a rare resource, 10,000 caddies of iron can be made into a lot of ironware, which is very valuable. Perhaps the role of ironware is mostly used to make armor and weapons, but for Liszt, iron is one of the basic materials of industry, which is a material that wood can never replace. Even if Liszt has fast-growing iron thorns, a wood of ironwood quality. After thanking him, Liszt called the manservant and brought the 5 pieces of mithril ore that he had specially prepared into the study. Lord Father, this is one of the treasures I found in the shipwreck. I want to exchange it for some gold coins. The territory's financial income is not enough and is very tight. Mithril? The Count, of course, has seen this ore and immediately recognized it in his hand. In fact, he has armed an elite knight squad with mithril armor. These 5 pieces of mithril can be integrated into iron ingots and can be made into almost 10 sets of mithril armor. They are very valuable. He gave Liszt a meaningful look. Liszt looked at the Count calmly. He understood what the Count meant. The Flower Town had brought out a lot of good things. The benefits from the shipwreck were probably more than just a few pieces of mithril and the previously mentioned crystals. However, he also understood that the Count would never rob his own son of his private property. How about a piece of mithril or converted into 100 gold coins? Of course, thank you for your generosity, Lord Father. 500 gold coins can buy 2,500 serfs, which is almost more than the population of Flower Town. Are you sure Flower Town can afford it? The Count said with a smile. List's heart thumped. He always felt that this smile was more profound than the look in his eyes just now. It was as if the Count had seen through everything a long time ago. Under this smile, List felt that all his secrets were exposed. He had reason to think so. With the Count's knowledge of Coral Island, it was not difficult to know anything. Does he already know the existence of Black Horse Island? The thought flashed and List immediately suppressed it. Whether he knew or not, he just pretended not to know. Reclaiming a deserted island was not something that would anger the gods. As long as the Count did not know the existence of the Black Blood Horse, even if Black Horse Island was known, it would not matter. At least for now, the Count was not clear about the Black Blood Horse. Otherwise, even if List was his own son, he would not hesitate to take the Black Blood Horse. The affection of the aristocracy was not worth mentioning in the face of great benefits. Besides, it was not a big deal to take the horses and compensate List with some gold coins. How could the father-son relationship be shaken? Why not? There was no need for the Count to rob. As long as he launched a little family public opinion, Madame Penelope, Madame Marie, Elvira, and Levis would be able to drown List. In fact, from the perspective of interests, it was not necessarily a bad thing to contribute the Black Blood Horse to the Count. But List was reluctant. The horses were in the hands of the Tulip family. He did not know how many years it would take for them to be given to his armed knight squad. As a future dragon knight with a broad mind, his own things were his own things. If he did not want to give it to anyone, no one could take it away. The resources of the family should support him to achieve his lofty ideals and revitalize the family. Chapter 241. That night, List invited his friends to a banquet at Tulip Castle, a total of 15 people. They were all descendants of knight who could not inherit the title, or trainee knight academy knight. Among them, List was most interested in the two Earth Knights, Rick Footprint, who had previously said that he would follow him at the aristocratic manor, and Griffin Haystack, an orphan. Griffin's combat energy attribute was lightning. He had just turned 20 years old and his combat power was good. The only flaw was his stutter. Nobles paid attention to appearance and they also paid attention to their physique. They could be ugly but they could not be disabled. Stuttering was classified as a disability, so Griffin was not selected for the Orders of Chivalry in Coral City, and he was sad for a long time. He remembered that List's predecessor had also laughed at Griffin. But later he found that Griffin was a good person, very simple and honest, and he gradually felt a sense of sympathy for him. Of course, maybe he wanted to have a disabled person by his side to set off him. Now List was very satisfied with Griffin. He was simple and honest, hard-working, and regarded himself as a confidant. He could be said to be a very suitable candidate for a follower, and his loyalty was guaranteed. Except for Rick and Griffin, the rest were trainee knight. They might be qualified to be an official, but they were not qualified to enter the knight squad. Marcus, Russell, Randy, Rick and Griffin. I already have 5 members of the knight squad, and with 7 more I can start a team. After sending away his friends who had drunk too much, List returned to the room he had lived in for more than 10 years and thought quietly. The knight squad was a unit, and they could practice the method of joint attacks, mixing their combat energy and rolling it into one. Only with a knight squad would one be qualified to go to the battlefield. As for List himself, his safety could be handed over to Dosen and the hired Paris. He believed that with the strength of 1 man and 1 dog, even if they were really chased by the Sword Saint, they could still escape. Moreover, I am the Count's son, and I am responsible for logistics. Levis was in charge of logistics on the battlefield. Of course he couldn't lose to Levis. He had to snatch the logistics job. The next day was the celebration feast. All the aristocrats in the vicinity of Coral Island rushed to Tulip Castle. Together with the servants they brought, the entire Tulip Castle was as noisy as a vegetable market. The members of the Orders of Chivalry who participated in the battle did not have a noble title and were certain that they would not receive a noble title this time. After receiving their gold coins as rewards, they immediately went back to their homes to find their mothers. There were 7 knights left without titles. The 7 of them were knight who had made great contributions this time and could be conferred the title of Lord Knight. They were all in great joy and couldn't wait for the conferment ceremony to begin immediately. In fact, there were 3 other knights who could be conferred the title of Baron. However, those 3 knights were the followers of the 2 viscounts, so they couldn't attend the count's banquet. At the moment there were 3 viscounts in Tulip Castle: Trick Wildgrass, Jonas Gravel and Levis Tulip. There were 16 Baron including List Tulip, 76 Lord Knight, plus the 7 newly promoted ones for a total of 83. If I remember correctly, the count used to have 82 Lord Knight. It seems that 6 Knight Lords died on the battlefield this time. The sacrifice of a knight was normal, and the death of a Knight Lord was also not uncommon. The death of Baron and above aristocrats was getting lower and lower. They were all lords responsible for commanding their knight followers to fight. Dangerous charges were, of course, the followers fought to the death, and the lords could not take the lead in the charge. Just like List, when he formed the knight squad, he never planned to include himself in it. He had his own reasons for not participating in the battle. After riding on Dosen, he was an existence that kept the formation in check. I'm here, don't panic, charge. It was said that there were 2 kinds of leadership: charisma, follow me, and go for me. The leader who follows me can win the support and love of his subordinates, and thus exert great combat power. However, List still chose to go for me. How could the life of a peasant compare to the life of an aristocrat? The leader who follows me is often engraved on a monument, but the leader who goes for me will always be your leader. Actually, this is not a strict statement. There should be 3 kinds of lords. The first kind, everyone follows me and we share the benefits together. The second kind, everyone goes for me and we share the benefits together. The third kind, everyone goes for me and all the benefits belong to me. I want to be the third kind of lord the most, but let's be the second kind first. The conferring ceremony before the celebration banquet was very lively. 7 new Lord Knight held the medal that symbolized the title of Lord Knight with tears in their eyes. There was a huge gap between civilians and aristocrats, and it often took the efforts of several generations to achieve. But once you had a title, even if you died on the battlefield, your descendants would inherit the title. It was an unshakable and hereditary nobility. Unless there were no children after death, or if you made a big mistake, aristocratic titles were rarely deprived. I swear to serve you with my life. The 7 Lord Knight knelt on one knee and solemnly performed the standard knight's loyalty etiquette to the Count. The Count sat on the main seat and accepted it calmly. He said some words of encouragement and warning. The general meaning was, I hope you will serve me with all your heart in the future. I can give you titles, but I can also take them back. Keep a humble attitude, abide by the virtues of a knight, and don't let me down. After the conferring ceremony, the atmosphere reached a climax. The Lord Knight was drinking and bragging downstairs. The Baron, the Viscount, and the Count were drinking and bragging upstairs. Whether it was those who participated in the war or those who did not, they were all drinking heartily. List was still not used to this kind of overly lively banquet and fell into a state of silence. Only when others raised their glasses to toast did he pick up his glass and exchange a few words of flattery with the other party. The current List was no longer the Count's useless son, but a rising future Viscount. Even Baron Henderson, who scolded List for being greedy in the territory, found an opportunity to toast to List with a flattering smile instead of complaining to the Count. Baron List, I wish Flower Town a prosperous business. List simply responded, I also wish your territory a prosperous business. Baron Henderson wanted to say something, but he opened his mouth and didn't say anything. He just drained his glass, smiled ingratiatingly and returned to his seat. The most eye-catching younger generation at the banquet. Not List but his brother Levis. On the battlefield this time, Levis was in charge of logistics and communication. He had seen blood and killed people. He had become a qualified heir in the eyes of the Count's followers. In the case of the Count being too majestic and only touching his lips when drinking, the followers naturally focused their firepower on Levis. List could only be regarded as being affected by the firepower. But even if he was silent and tried to be invisible, he was drunk by the end of the celebration banquet. When he was helped to bed by the servants, there was only one thought in his drowsy mind, sooner or later, I will also become a Count. Only I can persuade others to drink, no one dares to persuade me to drink. Chapter 242. When he woke up, the chi in his body had eliminated the symptoms of the hangover, and List was full of energy again. He said goodbye to the Count. The New Year's Day is in 2 days. I have to return to Flower Town to deal with some estate affairs. Just in time, I was going to send someone to inform you of something. Father, please speak. Last night, a ship from Red Crab Island arrived. The deputy steward of Longtaro Castle came by ship. He brought a letter from your uncle Mesiro. The letter mentioned that your grandfather's body has never recovered, and this year is probably the last time he will celebrate the New Year's Day. So your uncle hopes that you 3 siblings can go to Red Crab Island to celebrate the New Year's Day. Marquis Merlin's body has come to an end. List was inexplicably sad. He had a good impression of Marquis Merlin, who gave him a gem weapon, the red blood sword. Not to mention the feelings from the memory of his predecessor. When do we set off? You go back to Flower Town today and come back tomorrow. The day after tomorrow, you will set off with the ship. The 2-day voyage will be just in time for the New Year's Day. The Count set the time. Yes. I'm finally going back. Paris stretched and cheered up. I have begun to miss the egg rolls in Flower Town. Oh my God, there are no egg rolls in Coral City? Not every place is called Flower Town. List raised his cloak and mounted Black Dragon. A black warhorse, black World of Warcraft leather armor, and a bright red cloak. The hood was not worn on his head, revealing his light blonde finger-length hair, blowing in the cold wind. It could dazzle a group of young girls and old girls. Young Master List is really handsome. The maids cleaning outside the castle, when they saw List at this time, blushed. It was unknown what kind of Mary Sue or Tom Sue story they were thinking of. Paris happened to hear the whispers of the maids and couldn't help but roll her eyes. However, when she saw List waving to Madame Penelope, Elvira, and Madame Marie on horseback, she couldn't help but smile. She was also dazzled for a while, only feeling the imposing aura of Tom Sue hit her whole body. How can a man be so handsome? Galloping all the way back to Flower Town, it was still snowing lightly. The snow on the ground was not very thick. The main road was very clean. During List's absence, the Flower Town's officials and serfs obviously did not slack off. After returning to the castle, the officials immediately came to report their work. Advisor Gort, these people are Brad's family. They have moved to the Flower Town. You are responsible for arranging a house for them. Also, Philip, tell Brad to come here. I have something to tell him. After List finished speaking, he asked another question. Have you finished handing over the iron ingots that I asked the caravan to transport back? The iron ingots have been stored in the castle's warehouse. Without your instructions, we haven't handed them over to the smithy for forging. Leave 3,000 caddies of iron ingots in storage and take out 10,000 caddies of iron ingots to give to the blacksmith shop. Try your best to make a batch of construction tools and logging tools. In the future, cutting down iron thorns will be a big problem. As you wish. Soon, Brad, the crystal craftsman who was carving volcanic glassware, rushed to the castle. Then he learned from his family that the Count had ordered his family to move to the Flower Town and become List subjects. They had to stay in the Flower Town for the rest of their lives. Brad's heart collapsed. From a well-off city dweller, he suddenly became a small-town country bumpkin. But he did not dare to complain because this was the Count's order. On the Coral Island, no one dared to disobey the Count's will, not even the aristocratic lords. Seeing Brad's reluctance, List was in a good mood and comforted him. Brad, don't worry about your future life. The beauty of the Flower Town will exceed your imagination. Sir Lord, I'm not worried about my life. The Flower Town is beautiful and the food is delicious, I know that. But I'm worried about my job. I can't get any more crystal carving work here. Oh my God, I think I will starve to death. The more he thought about it, the sadder he became and he almost cried. I said, don't worry about your life, don't worry about your job. You just need to work for the castle and for me. I can ensure that your income will not be less than what you have in Coral City. Brad was a craftsman at the level of a craftsman. List attached great importance to him because he could not only carve crystals, but also volcanic glass, which meant that the future of glass carving could be handed over to Brad. Glass was a product that List would research sooner or later. After a few simple words of comfort, he became impatient. No matter how powerful the craftsman was, he was just a civilian in front of him. He gave face and said a few words, but he did not give face and directly whipped him. Isaiah, remember to build a crystal workshop in the workshop area and give it to Brad to preside over. As you wish. The town's affairs could not be said to be small, but not many. At least for the Flower Town's New Year's celebration, arrangements must be made. This was a festival that any country would celebrate. The town also needed a festival to relax the people and increase cohesion. Gort, as an advisor, could preside over this year's New Year's celebration. Marcus was sent to Black Horse Island to preside over the New Year's celebration on Black Horse Island. He was relieved that Isaiah, Blair, and others would take care of the construction of the territory. Moreover, he also decided to let Zambrata take up his post ahead of schedule as the town's legal officer and assist Isaiah in managing the construction. Russell and Randy, the two Earth Knights, let them go home for the festival after all. they had not officially followed him. So, the report was over. The officials were sent away. List began to deal with the castle's private affairs. He told the butler Carter, "I have to return to Tulip Castle tomorrow. This year, I will go to Red Crab Island's Long Taro Castle for the New Year's festival. Therefore I will not be back for at least 10 days. I need to make some preparations. Mr. Carter, take care of the castle for me." "Of course, your will is my guide," Carter replied gracefully. "Then help me choose a gift first. What kind of gift should I bring for grandpa, uncle, and cousin? There is Levis and Elvira in front of me. I am just a country baron. There is no need to spend too much. It is best to send some specialties. Flour soap is pretty good, and oyster sauce." Oyster sauce was a specialty of the oyster settlement. Half of the seafood business of the flour caravan was selling oyster sauce. The aristocrats of Coral Island cooked with oyster sauce. It was very suitable for gifts, especially the effect of oyster sauce, which any man would like. With oyster sauce and flour soap as a base, Carter helped choose a few gifts and a gift list was completed. Then there was discussion of issues such as how to take care of the sprite worm. Carter suddenly remembered, "Master, there is one thing I don't know how you will arrange." "What is it?" When old Defoe of the kennel came to check on Stupid Woman's condition, he said that Stupid Woman may give birth in the next half-month. "I don't know how you will arrange it?" "Did he say when exactly?" "He can only see a general idea. Otherwise I will have someone call old Defoe over." Chapter 243. Stupid Woman's status in Flower Town was pitiful. Since she was caught, she has not only been used as Dawson's fertility machine, but she has also been imprisoned in a secret room. Her bestial nature has long been worn out, leaving only slavery. This is the destruction of life, this is the obliteration of nature. If there was a small animal protection organization on the island, List would definitely be nailed to the pillar of shame and enjoy the treatment of being reviled by thousands of people. Unfortunately, there is no such organization on the island, and humans have no sympathy for World of Warcraft. Isn't World of Warcraft born to be killed by humans to eat and earn gold coins? The snow in the dog prison is thick, and no one has come to clean it in the past few days. Although Stupid Woman no longer releases magic and has almost forgotten the existence of rock thorns for ordinary people, it is still a huge threat. "My lord, it really won't kill me?" Old Defoe trembled as he followed List into the dog prison. I'll stay outside the dog prison and look at it." "Don't be nervous, old Defoe, I'm here, what are you afraid of?" List said gently. "This time I want you to observe closely and see the approximate birth period of Stupid Woman. Don't be nervous, you see, I'm already standing here. Is there any dangerous movement from Stupid Woman?" Old Defoe wanted to take a step, but his legs did not listen to him. My lord, a pregnant mother will be furious if a stranger approaches. Stupid Woman will not." Snap. List, who had lost his patience, kicked old Defoe's butt with his boot. "If I ask you to come forward and observe, then come forward and observe, or go directly to my retainer knight and receive 100 whips. 100 whips can kill a strong man." Old Defoe was kicked and finally got rid of his fear of Stupid Woman. He carefully began to check Stupid Woman's situation around the cage. Stupid Woman turned her head and looked at old Defoe. Her mouth slightly opened and she let out a low growl. List threw in a piece of jerky. The next moment, Stupid Woman roared and began to shake her tail and chew the jerky. Blessed Curls stretched out his claws outside the cage and wanted to grab the jerky. He never knew what it meant to be tender. After a while, old Defoe gave the conclusion of his observation. "My lord, judging from the changes in Stupid Woman's body shape and the signs of moist private parts, she is not ready to give birth and will probably need half a month of gestation. But I can't guarantee that it might be born prematurely. Generally, dogs can give birth after 2 months of pregnancy. Stupid Woman is a World of Warcraft and the pregnancy time is longer, but after all she is still a dog and no matter how long she grows she will not grow much." Old Defoe, who had raised dogs for many years, had rich experience in the pregnancy and birth of ordinary dogs, but he could only guess about World of Warcraft. List had a rough idea. What he was most worried about was that the first person Stupid Woman would see when she opened her eyes was not him. The reason why Dawson was so loyal was because the first person it saw when it opened its eyes was List. If Stupid Woman gave birth 10 days later, List would be able to return from Red Crab Island before the cub opened its eyes. Otherwise he would miss the time when the puppy opened its eyes. At that time when the puppy opened its eyes, it would see Stupid Woman. Although it could be tamed and cultivated from an early age, loyalty could not be completely guaranteed. List did not like this kind of unguaranteed loyalty. People could be kidnapped by interests and family, but it was difficult to restrain World of Warcraft except for recognizing its master. For example, Marcus, whose family was in Flower Town, List trusted him because the cost of Marcus's betrayal was so high that he could hardly afford it. Basically, these officials and Knight were difficult to betray on the Tulip family's Coral Island. Another example was Paris. She had her sister Maggie as a constraint. As long as Mrs. Harriet's family could establish an unbreakable relationship with Maggie, it would be difficult for Paris to betray. Of course, there was still a risk of her betrayal, and it would take time to establish real trust. As a Black Dragon Gang member, she had high research value and was worth the risk that List would take to keep her by his side. He would study her slowly in the future. After instructing the servants to clean the dog prison carefully, List took Dosen and left the reluctant stupid woman. He could only stay in Flower Town for one night. The Flowers was still docked at Black Horse Island, so List could not get back his calm pearl, which made him very uncomfortable. He should have asked Glanny Truth to create another calm pearl a long time ago. Going out to sea without the calm pearl always felt unsafe. Arriving at Tulip Castle, he met Rainieri, the deputy butler of Longtaro Castle. Rainieri had delicate curly hair and the most popular steel voice of the upper class. He spoke more accurately than List. "Young Master List, Rainieri greets you. Mr. Rainieri, how is my grandfather's health? The master can get out of bed and walk, but he was seriously injured when he was young and left a hidden disease. Even high-level chi can't repair it, which seriously dragged down the master's health," Rainieri said heavily. As a veteran Sky Knight, Merlin Longtaro fought all over the world when he was young and suffered countless injuries. Chi can repair physical wounds, but serious injuries to the internal organs are difficult to heal with Chi. Chi is more suitable for repairing skin injuries. I believe that Grandpa is omnipotent and powerful enough to overcome any hidden disease and restore his health. Thank you for your blessing, we all think so. After greeting Rainieri, List found Levis and Elvira and asked them about the gift arrangements. As the heir of Tulip Castle, Levis naturally had a lot of gifts, all of which were very high-end and expensive, including a gift from the Count to his father-in-law. Elvira's gift was much lighter. It was a small gift with a heart. She was a female aristocrat. She could not pick out a few gifts. "Let me see your gifts, flour soap and flour oyster sauce? And these are egg rolls, bread and longevity noodles?" Elvira helped List check the size of the gifts. "What is longevity noodles?" "It's a long noodle." "Oh, I forgot that you don't know what noodles are." Noodles are Mrs. Abby's new food. A long noodle boiled in water with seasonings and with 2 eggs is a very delicious dish. And long noodles mean longevity. Very creative. I'm jealous that you have a chef like Mrs. Abby. My chef can only make bread and can't even learn how to scramble eggs. But don't you think these gifts are too light? Grandpa gave you a gem weapon. Are the gifts you sent worth a gold coin? It's probably worth 2 gold coins. After hearing Elvira's words, List also began to feel ashamed. These gifts were said to be local specialties, but to put it bluntly, they were cheap local goods. After thinking about it, he added, "I'll add a black pearl." A fist-sized black pearl could be made into a defensive magic equipment and was worth hundreds of gold coins. In this way, his gift had value and was no longer shabby. Chapter 244. The sailboats of Red Crab Island had sails that covered the sky. It was embroidered with a huge sapphire symbol, which was the symbol of the court, signifying the dignity and authority of the Sapphire family. This ship is really big. It's much bigger than the Tulip family's ship. It was the first time that Paris had seen such a huge ship. It was a new experience for her. List ignored his noble image and sat on the deck stairs at the bow of the ship, his back against the soft fur on Dosen's belly. The strong sea breeze blew, causing his originally meticulously combed light blonde short hair to flutter unceasingly. This is the palace's fast sailboat. It can reach a speed of 10 knots when the wind is right. My grandfather used to be in charge of the palace navy. He had a high position and was deeply trusted by the Grand Duke. After he left office, he gave me a few fast sailboats. The Taro family had always been known for their shrewdness. They were absolute followers of the Grand Duke. In the past, when Marquis Merlin's father was still a count, he used all of his family's wealth to support the previous generation's Grand Duke in waging war. In the end, he obtained the title of Marquis in the huge Red Crab Island. After the new Grand Duke ascended to the throne, he relied on Marquis Merlin to take charge of the palace navy. It should be known that the Grand Duchy of Sapphire couldn't do without the navy when fighting across the sea. It could be seen how much the Grand Duke relied on Marquis Merlin. Unfortunately, Marquis Merlin had fallen ill and was no longer serving in the court. As for List's uncle, Mesiro Longtaro, although he was also a Sky Knight, he did not inherit Marquis Merlin's martial prowess. It was only at the age of 35 that he managed to break through to high-level Do Chi. At this age, Li William had already established the Coral Island lineage by virtue of his Sky Knight fighting strength. Although Mesiro's talent was terrible, it was said that cousin Meople's talent was pretty good. He was 25 years old this year and had already touched the critical point of a Sky Knight. He could break through at any time. It had to be said. At the level of accumulation of wealth, even a pig could be piled up into a Sky Knight. He might not be as talented as Li William, who played the black medicine style, but it would not be a problem for him to ensure his family's survival. If they worked hard to nurture the next generation, they would still be able to ensure the prosperity of the clan. Your name is Paris? Olvera had also arrived on the deck. After greeting List with a smile, she began to chat with Paris. Yes, Olvera Baron. You are not a native of Coral Island? Your accent is very different from the accent here. I'm from the Eagle Kingdom. Serf? No, I'm a mercenary. Oh, there are many mercenaries on the continent. How did you come to Coral Island and accept my brother's employment? I came by boat. My sister was sold to the Flower Town. I followed her here and then accepted Sir Baron's employment. How are your skills? Olvera suddenly had the urge to give it a try. List was watching how Olvera was trying to win over Paris. He didn't say anything. He just smiled faintly and scratched an itch for Dosen. Instead, he wanted to see if Olvera could win over Paris and test Paris's loyalty. Paris glanced at List, who was concentrating on grooming Dosen. She turned her head and said to Olvera, I am an elite Earth Knight. Baron Olvera, do you want to compete with me? I haven't reached the elite level yet, so I will ask you for advice on fighting skills. As you wish. Immediately, the two took out their respective swords and began to fight. After a series of clashing sounds, Olvera's sword was knocked away. It could be seen that Paris held back. She didn't even use the trick of light and shadow. She defeated Olvera, who had chi, by relying on her physical fitness. After the match, Olvera praised Paris. After chatting with List for a while, she left the bow and returned to the cabin. She didn't directly propose to recruit Paris. Now, Olvera had really restrained her previous Chinibu temper and no longer continued to snatch good things in front of List. Your sister is far weaker than you. Paris suddenly said. She has been promoted to an Earth Knight before she was a minor. Among the female knight, she is a very talented genius. List smiled and said very calmly, but my talent is even more outstanding. Paris turned her head and didn't respond to List. After the mercenary left, except for a few working sailors, only List and Dosen were left on the deck. Dosen was too big and didn't like to stay in the cabin. List did not return to the cabin and continued to accompany Dosen on the deck. Sailing on the sea was a very boring thing. List dozed off and thought about some trivial things. Thinking of this trip to Longtaro Castle, he did not know if he would be able to see Athena Salmon again. This beautiful girl had left a deep impression on him. But he didn't have the nerve to ask the deputy butler Rainieri about Athena's recent situation. At Athena's age, it was difficult for her to be single. After all, she wasn't a picky person like Olvera. It can't be said that Athena's eyes are not picky. Being able to choose me from the crowd at the ball shows that her conditions for choosing a partner are very high. He was imagining the scene of Athena seeing him and expressing her love again. Suddenly, he heard the lookout at the top of the mast exclaim, "It's the devil Cloud." Then the lookout blew the horn. The low, penetrating sound of the horn immediately woke up the people on the ship from their lethargy and hurriedly walked out of the cabin. List certainly understood the meaning of this horn, which meant that the ship was in danger. He quickly stood up, holding Dosen's hand, and nervously observed the surroundings. With this observation, he saw that on the route ahead of the ship, the sky had become gloomy. Dark clouds were roiling, mixed with bolts of lightning, crushing the skyline as they came crashing over. Devil Cloud. It's the Devil Cloud. The sailors exclaimed one after another and were eventually stopped by the captain's voice. Don't panic. Lower the sail. Drop the anchor. The bow anchor immediately sinks and the stern anchor ready. The voice was not loud, but the well-trained sailors immediately calmed the restlessness and began to quickly lower the sail. A group of strong sailors turned the capstan and dropped the bow anchor. The huge wooden chain, driven by the anchor, made a harsh friction sound and quickly sank to the bottom of the sea. There was a lack of iron, so the anchors were made of wood. Although the anchors were made of wood, they were ironwood, which sank into the water. A wooden anchor may weigh up to half a ton. When it sank into the water, the huge drag force immediately stopped the sailing ship and fixed it on the sea. Liszt was a little flustered. Because he did not bring the calm pearl, he was already uncomfortable. He did not expect to really encounter danger at sea. In the vast sea it was easy to swallow a few people. Seeing that Levis was rushing to the captain's room, he also rushed over, just in time to hear Levis's shout, "What is the devil cloud?" The captain took out the wine jug and gulped down a mouthful of wine. He calmed down and said, "Noble lords, don't panic, it's just a storm at sea. In my life I have encountered more storms than I have eaten white bread." The Cancer was once a palace sailing ship, with a huge tonnage, and the ability to resist storms can completely resist the devil cloud. Hearing him say it so easily, everyone calmed down a little. Chapter 245. In the vast sea, sea monsters were an unavoidable topic for seafarers, but in addition to sea monsters, various storms and disasters were also an eternal topic. In addition to these, ghost ships, singing demons, and so on were often repeatedly mentioned by sailors. The devil cloud was a mixed story of storms and ghost ships. Liszt was not unfamiliar with the origin of this story. The captain pointed to the rolling black clouds in the distant sky and the lightning in the black clouds, and said without fear, "The devil cloud is the manifestation of the vengeful spirit of Marquis Cohen." Marquis Cohen? Liszt quickly remembered that there was a keel bone in his gem space. According to Captain Costo on the Flower, the keel bone technique originated from the magicians of Marquis Cohen's family. However, with Marquis Cohen's participation in the palace coup and the destruction of his family, the keel bone technique was lost. The ghost ship's captain, Marquis Cohen, was once the king of navigation in the Aquamarine Sea. Legend has it that he went to the Devil's Sea and obtained the power of the devil. Looking at the approaching dark clouds and lightning, the captain said with a trembling voice, "There were no legends of gods in this world, but there were legends of devils." The sea beyond the Aquamarine Sea was called the Devil's Sea because in legend, the Devil's Sea was a place where devils roamed. Even the Dragon Knight did not dare to cross the Devil's Sea. Levis, however, impatiently scolded, "What nonsense! Marquis Cohen was just a marquis 100 years ago. He committed a great crime of rebellion and was strangled to death in a prison on Blue Dragon Island." The captain chuckled, feeling a little gloomy, but there were sailors who really saw a ghost ship in the Devil's Cloud, flying the flag of Marquis Cohen's sheep head. The sheep head burned with green fire, turned into a skeleton and sucked all the blood out of people. Morodo. Rainieri, the deputy steward on the ship, had just arrived. When he heard what he said, he immediately shouted, "Put away your nonsense. The nobles are countless times more knowledgeable than you. Keep your nonsense to scare yourself. Hurry up and find a way to survive this storm." After saying that, Rainieri said to the three siblings, "I'm sorry, young master, young miss, Morodo likes to talk nonsense. He definitely has a way to survive this storm. Let him stay in the captain's cabin and command the sailors to fight against the storm. You guys go rest in the cabin first." Liszt did not want to rest. He still wanted to figure out the devil cloud that Captain Morodo had mentioned. However, Levis, who was sure that Morodo was babbling nonsense, had already left. He thought about it and could only follow him out of the captain's cabin. This was indeed not a good time to disturb Morodo's command. They arrived at the cabin. Rainieri asked the accompanying manservant to serve coffee and explained, "Little young master, little miss, please forgive Captain Morodo's nonsense. He was once the most outstanding captain of Red Crab Island. He commanded the sailboat and rushed out of a deadly whirlpool. His son died in a storm accident." A melodramatic story came out of Rainieri's mouth. 5 years ago, Rainieri's family was harmonious and happy. He had a handsome only son and his dream was to command a ship to sail the azure wave sea like his father. For this dream, the young man started as a sailor and worked until he became the first mate. Finally, he had the opportunity to command a ship independently. But 3 months later, the ship did not return. Only 2 sailors on the ship escaped. They claimed that the ship had encountered the devil hiding in the storm clouds. The ghost ship flying the flag of the Marquis Cohen family engulfed their ship. Rainieri's son was swallowed by the devil while they were unconscious on the plank and were rescued by a passing merchant ship. Since then, Morodo firmly believed that the devil cloud would find him sooner or later. When he saw the storm clouds, he thought that the devil cloud had come. He had a high prestige on the ship. The sailors were personally trained by him. When he said it was the devil cloud, the sailors called it the devil cloud. After listening, Levis frowned and said, Mr. Rainieri, since Maroto has become a madman, why does Longtaro Castle still let him continue to be the captain? Rainieri said awkwardly, his experience is an irreplaceable and valuable asset. On the sea he can always overcome storms. No one is more suitable to be a captain than him. When the master was still able to fight, he would always take Maroto's ship and go overseas. Levis raised his eyebrows and did not continue to say anything. After all, he was the meritorious captain of Longtaro Castle. Occasionally being foolish was not enough to be abandoned. Liszt looked at his brother and sister, who had calmed down and still felt uneasy. He pushed the door open and went out. I'm a little stuffy, I'm going up to see what's going on. Sir Baron, do you feel uneasy? Paris followed. Touching Dosen's fur, Liszt did not speak. He just released magic eyes and observed the dark clouds and lightning that were about to roll over. Like a black towering wall, it roared to cut off the connection between the sea and the world, isolating the fast-sailing ship from the world. The picture of the sky being half black and half white was shuddering. In the vision of magic eyes, the black clouds and the rising and falling lightning had vague signs of magic, but it seemed to be just a magic reaction caused by the lightning. When the lightning lit up, there was a trace of magic. When the lightning went out, the trace of magic disappeared. It shouldn't be the magic of the ghost ship, it's just that the lightning stimulated the wandering magic. Liszt had seen the scene of lightning and thunder, and at that time he also found that lightning could stimulate magic. If there was a ghost ship, just like he could find the 36D Spectre hidden in the keel, magic eyes would definitely be able to see the magic of the ghost ship. No, it meant that it was not a devil cloud, just a simple storm. It could relax the mood. However, he was still nervous and vexed. I should have brought the sea-calming divine pearl with me. When I go back this time, I must ask Granny Truth to make me a calm pearl again. No, I'll make the largest black pearl into a sea-calming divine pearl. I hate storms. His anxiety was quickly suppressed by him. He touched Dosen's fur and thought, Dosen has learned to swim. I can ride him and drift on the sea. It can also release rock thorns in the sea, so it shouldn't be difficult to stab ordinary sea monsters to death. However, he quickly thought of a problem. He immediately ordered his retainer knight, Philip, go and inform Sir Lyden to remember to send someone to guard the life raft. If there is no problem, then so be it, but if there is, make sure that the life raft is in our hands. Yes, my lord. Suddenly, he remembered that Paris was right beside him. If his selfish words were heard by her, he would definitely be despised and his loyalty would be lowered. However, his brain turned very fast. He turned his head and said directly to Paris, who had not yet reacted, if the storm capsizes the sailboat, remember to follow me closely and don't rush around. There are only a few life rafts on the ship, and they can't save too many people. I don't want anything to happen to you. Paris, who did not know what was going on, was immediately moved. No, thank you, I should be the one to protect you. Only by living will you have a chance to protect me. Chapter 246. You jump, I jump. If you jump, I'll jump. When Liszt stood at the bow of the ship, he charmed many ignorant girls. Liszt always felt that there was nothing to be touched about. It was just an affair, and he described it as if it was a thunderstorm. But at this moment, looking at Paris, who was so moved that she stuttered, he suddenly understood that women and men were two different creatures. He had goosebumps after he said that sentence. It was disgusting. It was hard to imagine that he could say it with a little affection. The most important thing was that Paris actually believed it. She was so touched that her gaze became gentle. The art of controlling is broad and profound. Only by talking about honor and interest to men can it be effective. But for women, benefits and honor are all secondary. You can only start with feelings. At this moment, many insights came to Liszt's mind. Practice makes true knowledge, and his understanding of women went up another level. He immediately realized why he always met with a wall when chasing a girl in his previous life. Even if he made ice cream for the girl, he still couldn't win her favor. The reason was very simple, there were two. He was not handsome, so he didn't know how to talk. Now, not only was he handsome, but he also learned how to talk. The loyalty of the female mercenary to me has increased by about 10 points. The full value should be 70 points. The atmosphere was fleeting because the dark clouds of thunder and lightning were approaching. The sky was completely dark and only the light of the lightning flashed. Let's go back to the cabin first. Okay. Dosen was also pulled into the cabin. In the cabin, Levis and Elvira were informed. The three siblings looked at each other and exchanged their thoughts in an instant. When there was danger, the life raft would be distributed by them. If necessary, the sailors on the ship could be sacrificed. With a pain in his conscience, List sat down and sighed in his heart. I hope nothing really happens. It's best to reach Red Crab Island safely. Bang! A bolt of lightning fell outside the window, and dark clouds shrouded the fast-sailing ship. The storm was coming. The wind was howling, accompanied by bean-sized raindrops. The originally stable fast-sailing ship quickly swayed in the wind and waves. List held the wall with one hand and looked out the window calmly. It was so dark that one could not see any light other than the lightning. It was as if a huge mouth had swallowed the entire ship. The shouts of the sailors could be vaguely heard from the deck. They were trying their best to control the ship to prevent it from being blown over by the strong wind. At sea, wind and waves were the main factors that led to ship accidents. Experienced captains knew how to avoid wind and waves. At this time, the waves were not very big, mainly because the wind was very strong, and coupled with the rain, the fast sailboat was flapping like a toy. The three siblings, who rarely experienced storms, were nervous for a while. They found that although the sailboat was swaying, and the bow and stern of the boat were rising and sinking, there were no signs of the boat turning over. They could not help but relax and look out the window. There was no sign of the Spectre ship. Maroto was indeed spouting nonsense. How could there be a Marquis Cohen Spectre ship? Levis said in disdain. Did Marquis Cohen really die in the Blue Dragon Island prison? Yes, this is not a secret. When Marquis Cohen participated in the coup and failed, he was immediately put under house arrest by the Grand Duke at that time. After everyone in the family was arrested, he was secretly executed in prison. The Sapphire family did not create its current glory by being soft-hearted. Levis said with a tone of admiration. He was very supportive of the Sapphire family. It seemed that, as Levis said, this was just an ordinary storm. Half an hour later, dark clouds still covered the sky, but the lightning had stopped. The heavy rain and strong wind also gradually calmed down, and the fast sailboat regained its stability. The storm is finally over. Olvera stretched. But before she could finish sighing, the lookout who had climbed to the top of the mast blew the horn again. The low sound of the horn spread in the dark environment, giving off an eerie feeling. What's going on? There was no need for too much words. The constant sound of the horn made everyone's heart sink. They all understood the seriousness of the problem. The storm had stopped, but the danger had not been lifted. There must be a new danger approaching. Normally they might think of sea monsters, but they had experienced the scare of the devil cloud. Everyone's heart was drumming, feeling as if they had bumped into the devil cloud. This feeling came true. Soon a sailor shouted, "Ah, light! 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 It's the green light of the ghost ship." List and the others hurriedly climbed out of the cabin and onto the bow deck. Then they saw a green light moving in the dark distance. It was moving towards them, flickering like a real will-o'-the-wisp. Others could only see a ghost fire. List cast magic eyes, but what he saw were signs of magic. The faint green magic outlined the vague shape of a damaged sailboat. It's really a ghost ship. He was shocked. He was not surprised. He had seen ghosts before, and there was a black dragon servant who was involved with ghosts. It could be seen that ghosts were not a legend but a real existence. But he was very nervous. The danger of encountering a ghost ship in the vast sea was self-evident. Marquis Cohen's ghost ship is real? Levis, who was on the side, swallowed his saliva and was equally nervous. No one could restrain their nervousness in the face of such an incredible situation as the ghost ship. Even Dosen, an intermediate World of Warcraft, felt the uneasiness of the atmosphere. The dog hair on his back stood up and he growled. At this time Levis's guard, Captain Leiden, a knight, stood up. "Don't be nervous, Sir Levis, Baron Olvera, Baron List, we are knight, we have chi, even the devil can cut off its head. Summon all knight, prepare to fight the ghost ship. Philip, Xavier, lead the Squire Knight and fight with Captain Leiden." List made a prompt decision. Soon the battle team composed of Knight and Squire Knight was assembled. Under Sir Ryden's command, each of them drew their weapons and prepared to face the approaching ghost ship. They could clearly see the decaying, damaged, mottled hull of the ship, and the flag with the symbol of a sheep's head hanging from the mast, burning with green flames. As Captain Maroto said, this was Marquis Cohen's ghost ship. "Lord Baron, be careful." Paris pulled out her great sword and stood in front of List. Her tone was heavy. She felt the threat of the ghost ship. She was panicking, and her hand holding Dosen's chain turned white. But on the surface, List remained calm and forced himself to look calm. "It's just a ghost ship. It might not be that strong when it's alive, so what if it's dead? My red blood sword hasn't been sharpened with fresh blood. Looks like I can't wait to enter the battlefield. I'll sharpen it with the ghost ship. Clang. He pulled out the red blood sword and circulated the chi in his body, getting into a battle stance. Creak, creak, creak. Chapter 247. There were still no dark clouds in the sky, and there was not a trace of light. Only the ghost ship was flickering with green will-o'-the-wisp, and the sheephead flag was burning with flames, illuminating some of the sea. Full rudder left. Turn. Turn. Captain Moroto's voice cut through the silence, followed by the clatter of the rudder turning. However, this sound lasted for a while and the speedboat still did not seem to turn around. We're trapped by the demons, Captain, we can't turn around. There's no wind, no waves, we can't move even with oars. It's over, it's really the Devil's Cloud, it's Marquis Cohen's ghost ship, it's coming to take revenge on us. I shouldn't have peeped at Lady Gaia taking a bath in the tavern. Really, I knew it would be retribution. The sailors were frightened. Captain Moroto was also at his wits' end. The speedboat seemed to be under a spell, motionless, waiting for the ghost ship to collide. Dosen multiple rock thorns. Seeing that the captain was at his wits' end, List suddenly decided to make the first move. He pointed to the ghost ship and gave orders to Dosen. Dosen was nervous largely because of the atmosphere. In fact, it did not know what the ghost ship was. When it heard List's command, it opened its mouth and spat out magic. Buff, buff, buff. A few rock thorns pierced out from the deck of the ghost ship, but surprisingly these rock thorns did not destroy the ghost ship at all. Instead, they fell directly from the deck and even the sound of falling into the sea could be heard. Thump, thump, thump. List wanted to say that this was not scientific. But since seeing dragons, elves, ghosts and black dragons, what was scientific? Perhaps for this fantasy world the existence of these things was science, but it could not be explained by science. While they were stunned, some sailors had already covered their heads and screamed, some even peed their pants. The captain sat in the captain's room, the jug in his hand swaying, wanting to drink but unable to. Even Olvera, who had always been brave, clenched her long sword and shouted with a trembling voice, "No!" Powerless to stop it. Everyone watched helplessly as the specter ship inevitably collided with the fast sailboats bow to bow, bit by bit. Hold on tight. It's going to be a naval battle. Captain Layden raised his knight longsword high and shouted, "Knight, show your courage and charge with me." His performance was worthy of the identity of a knight, brave and fearless. However, the atmosphere was different from what he had imagined. The collision did not happen. The decaying ghost ship passed through the fast sailboat like a layer of fog without any substance. Layden raised his knight's sword in a daze. At this moment, the originally nervous Levis suddenly erupted with courage. "List, Olvera, come closer to me. Captain Leo, organize the night team to defend the deck. We'll fight these damn specters here." A knight with combat aura is invincible. List gripped the red blood sword tightly and quickly joined up with Levis. "I want to fight alongside Big Brother and Big Sister." As he spoke, his eyes cast magic eyes. He could see the ghost ship burning with green will-o'-the-wisp. The body of the ship, outlined by magic, swallowed the fast sailboat bit by bit. Or rather, it could not be said to be swallowed. It just passed through like a phantom. In the blink of an eye, the decaying hull had already rushed in front of him. The decaying wooden hull was tattered, and one could even smell the smell of decay. It looked very real, but the ghost ship had already swallowed several sailors who could not dodge in time. One could still hear the sailors' cries for help while sitting on the deck. Creak. The harsh sound passed through the eardrums, and the overused magic eyes collapsed in an instant. List and the others were also swallowed by the ghost ship. Everything in front of them seemed to have changed in an instant. He was not standing on the deck of the fast sailboat, but on the decaying and tattered deck of the ghost ship. The surroundings were misty. He could not see Paris, Levis and the others who were just beside him. But this was only the result of observation with the naked eye. It was as if he was trapped on the ghost ship. He even stretched out his feet and touched the hole in the deck. He could really put his feet in, which meant that he was really standing on the deck of the ghost ship. Why is this happening? Suppressing his nervousness, he thought quickly, but he still couldn't understand why he was standing on the deck of a fast sailboat a moment ago, and in the next moment he was standing on the deck of a ghost ship. When he stepped on it, it sounded like the wooden planks would break at any moment. It was very real and not an illusion. "Levis, Olvera," he shouted, but no one answered. There was only the sound of the wood squeaking. "Dosen, Paris." There was no response. The fog was rolling and the light was dim. He could not even see the will-o'-the-wisp that he could see before. Am I trapped in the ghost ship? Why is this happening? Is my five senses hallucinating? Or is matter and spirit distorted at this moment? The triangular theory that mages believed in emerged in his mind. He remembered the theoretical principles that Glanny had said: matter, magic, and spirit were constantly changing. But the red blood sword was still in his hand. He did not believe that so many people in such a huge fast sailboat could be so quickly transformed. I must be hallucinating. Yes, hallucinating. He rubbed his eyes fiercely. Feeling that the fatigue had subsided, he immediately cast magic eyes again. In an instant, the surroundings underwent a drastic change again. He saw where the people around him went. The human figures outlined by magic did not go too far. They just kept spinning in place, even waving their weapons to fight and kill each other. He saw Levis, desperately waving his sword to cut the air in front of him. He saw Elvira holding her sword and shivering. He saw Captain Lydon, who cut a trainee knight to the ground. Then he found Paris behind him, less than a meter away. Dosen was also there, but Paris and Dosen did not see each other. Paris held her big sword and nervously patrolled the surroundings, while Dosen kept opening his mouth and seemed to be barking. At this time, the movement of a magic human figure alerted List. The other party had fallen from the deck and into the cabin of the ghost ship. In other words, even if these people, including himself, were trapped in an illusion. But their location was still not on a fast sailboat, but on a ghost ship. Only a ghost ship had a rotten deck. Without time to think about the reason, List leaned directly toward Dosen and then slapped Dosen on the back. Dosen. Trembling Woods twisted his body, opened his mouth and spat out a rock spike. Fortunately, List was prepared. He twisted his body and dodged, continuing to pat Dosen and calling out, "Dosen! You have even forgotten your master." Dosen seemed to have no reaction at all. His dog eyes were confused as he continued to release rock thorns randomly. It was not until List took out a piece of jerky and found an opportunity to stuff it into his mouth that he bit the jerky and shook his head, his pair of dog eyes regaining clarity. Chapter 248. After waking up Dosen, List's nervousness was greatly relieved. It was a bit unpleasant to say that a man relied on a dog's power, but it was really reassuring to have Dosen by his side. Woof woof. Dosen ate the jerky in 2 bites and barked again. It still couldn't see the surroundings clearly, only the misty surroundings. List also couldn't see the surroundings clearly. He could only judge his situation by the magic lines outlined by the magic eye. However, the magic eye collapsed once when the ghost ship switched to the real scene. As a result, his eyes were still very tired. He could not continue to persist after waking up Dosen, so he could only disperse the magic eye. After the magic eye dispersed, the boundary between reality and illusion blurred again. He could only come and go on the deck, unable to contact anyone else. What kind of state am I in now? How did the ghost ship cause this effect that is far beyond an illusion? He wanted to find Paris's position according to his memory, but unfortunately, after walking dozens of steps and passing through several holes on the deck, he still couldn't reach Paris. Only Dosen followed behind. Since Dosen was woken up by him with the jerky, he did not continue to fall into the illusion, and the dog leash was firmly held in his hand. Feeling that this was not safe, he tied one end of the dog leash to the belt on his waist, in case he fell into the illusion, and let go of Dosen's leash. Perhaps because he had been nervous too many times, although the current situation was unknown, he seemed to have adapted, and his mind returned to the calmest state. The magic of the dragon infects the surroundings and produces treasures. The magic of the elves affects crops and makes plants flourish. Dosen's magic can create rocks, and my chi can also leave my body and burn. All of this shows the existence of magic. Not only can it create things out of nothing, but it also has incredible effects. He carefully looked at the rolling fog around him. He felt that he had touched the essence of the ghost ship. So in essence, this ghost ship of Marquis Cohen is also a manifestation of magic? To say it is illusory, for it is only magic. To say it is real, for magic can affect reality. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this speculation was correct. However, it seemed that knowing the principle was useless. Those who should be trapped in the spectre ship were still trapped in the spectre ship. I should wait for my eyes to recover before I cast magic eyes again. Without magic eyes, it's almost impossible for me to move within the range of the spectre ship. The collapse of the magic eye just now caused him to feel tired, as if he had suffered a backlash. Ever since he became proficient in the magic eyes, he could almost continuously cast Chi's secret skills without getting tired. While circulating his Do Chi to recover from the fatigue in his eyes, he silently sighed, "I hope that not everyone dies." He was supposed to go to Red Crab Island to celebrate the new year and maybe he could get something good from Marquis Merlin, but he didn't expect to encounter the Spectre ship, which was almost impossible to encounter. His luck was extremely bad. Haste makes waste. He did not immediately cast magic eyes, still waiting for the fatigue in his eyes to recover. After a while, under the continuous recovery of his chi, his eyes became spirited again, without the slightest feeling of fatigue. Almost there. In a flash, he cast magic eyes and his vision, which was wrapped in mist, changed again. The outline of a sailboat and the silhouettes of people outlined by magic power immediately emerged. Based on his memory, he first found the shivering Olvera, who was being chased around in circles by a trainee knight. Bang! Liszt kicked the trainee knight and then grabbed Olvera. "Wake up, Olvera!" Pada! Pada! 2 slaps on the face, but Olvera still did not wake up. In desperation, Liszt dragged her directly and stuffed her into a cabin of the Spectre ship. No one slashed her, so he let her toss around in the cabin first. After rescuing Olvera, Liszt did not stop. He took Dosen and spent a lot of effort to grab Levis and drag him into a cabin. The dizzy Levis could not exert the combat power of an elite Earth Knight. After rescuing his brother and sister, he was ready to drag Paris into the cabin again. However, Paris was far more skilled than others. After being beaten by Liszt and Dosen, she still could not be restrained and even showed signs of transformation. Seeing this, Liszt simply ignored her. With her combat power, it was estimated that no one on this ship could match her. "If I want to wake these people up, I'm afraid I have to get rid of the Spectre ship." The Spectre ship without ghosts was no threat to Liszt, who had magic eyes. "Let's go, Dosen, to the place where the magic is the brightest." Holding Dosen, he went straight to the place where the magic of the Spectre ship was the strongest. Green magic power formed a vague outline of the Spectre ship, and there were 3 obvious places where the magic power was concentrated. One was the sheephead flag at the top of the mast, which was burning with magic flames. The other was the bow of the ship, which looked like a dragon-shaped sculpture, a sculpture of the Sapphire Dragon. The people of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire believed that the Sapphire Dragon could suppress all the sea monsters in the Azure Wave Sea and protect the safety of the crew. But at this time, the bow of the ship, which was burning with green flames, was not like a dragon but more like a bat. The last place, which was where Liszt was going, was in the middle of the cabin. The magic there was not as strong as the sheephead flag and the dragon-shaped bow, but it seemed to be the heart of the entire Spectre ship. Every magic that outlined the outline of the Spectre ship originated from here. Woof woof. Dosen's huge body followed Liszt with difficulty, crossing the rotten wood and walking to the middle of the cabin. There was a constant creaking sound under their feet, as if the planks under their feet would be broken at any time. In fact, they shouldn't have brought Dosen down. The cabin and aisle below were very narrow. It was not suitable for Dosen at all, but with Dosen, Liszt had the confidence to walk alone in the eerie and terrifying Spectre ship. "We're almost there. A few more steps forward, and they would reach the cabin room with a strong magic light." But at this moment, the Spectre ship, which was so quiet that only the sound of the planks could be heard, suddenly heard a subtle voice. It was not clear. But Liszt didn't think that he was hallucinating, because Dosen also pricked up his ears and looked in the direction of the sound. Woof woof. Dosen shook. Liszt comforted Dosen. He listened carefully. The voice was intermittent, but it did reach them. It was vague and only a few incoherent words could be heard. Just, that, Andy, wow, mother, home, magic, Curtis, madman. No. And these words were obviously not said by one person. It was a group of people shouting noisily. Andy? Curtis? It sounds like 2 names. Liszt was muttering these 2 names when suddenly a pale face appeared on the magic wall in front of him. The face seemed to be shouting at Liszt, but it also seemed to be shouting to itself, "No." This unexpected scene scared Liszt so much that he stabbed the red blood sword straight into the face. The fire attribute chi exploded, and the magic that formed the face was blown to pieces. The face disappeared and so did the shouting. Chapter 249. Bang. Kicking open the cabin door, Liszt walked into the destination with the red blood sword. When he entered the cabin, he suddenly discovered that the reason why there was a large concentration of magic power here was because the walls of the cabin were engraved with dense magic runes. In the square cabin there was only a simple square table and a stool. There was a book on the table and a box of ink with a quill pen in the ink. The green magic runes flickered constantly, creating a mysterious and magical atmosphere. Woof woof. After squeezing into the cabin, Dosen barked directly at a wall. List followed Dosen's gaze and looked at the wall, only to see another pale face appear. It opened its mouth and shouted sharply, "Damn it! Go to hell." List raised the red blood sword and stabbed it, piercing the pale face. However, on the other side of the wall, between the gaps of the magic runes, a pale human face suddenly appeared. The facial features were blurry and a shrill voice was heard. "Curtis, you lunatic." Noisy. List wanted to attack again and explode this thing that he didn't know whether it was a ghost, but he suddenly stopped. This thing didn't seem to have any harm, so he might as well listen to what it had to say. He didn't want to kill it. After shouting this sentence, the face directly retreated. Then on the third wall, a pale face also appeared, screaming shrilly, "They're coming." Then on the fourth wall, a pale face appeared and screamed, "Great magician, save us." So, this is similar to the message left by the crew when they were alive? List took a deep breath and walked to the edge of the table in the middle of the cabin. He raised the red blood sword and touched the book on the table. The book didn't seem to be real because it was also outlined by magic power. At this moment, the face that should have been pierced and exploded on the first wall appeared again and screamed, "Mom, I want to go home." Woof woof. Dosen barked. List ignored him. When the sword touched the book, it felt like it had touched something solid, and it did not trigger any traps. Only then did he feel at ease and pick up the book. It was thick and heavy with the words "To His Royal Highness Annette, Curtis Truth," written on the cover. With just a glance he tried to put the magic book into the gem space. It was easy to fit in. This was a real book, not something that the Spectre ship had created, something between reality and illusion. Of course, it is also possible that it is indeed a book between reality and illusion, but it is fixed by the special nature of the gem space so that it can continue to exist in the gem space. At this moment, another pale face appeared on the wall and shouted, "For His Highness Annette." "Your Highness Annette?" List's hands did not stop. He stuffed ink, quill pens, tables and benches into the gem space. "If I'm not mistaken, His Highness Annette is a prince of the Sapphire family? A prince who did not sit on the throne of the Grand Duke?" The name of the Sapphire family began with an A, that is, N, as a commemoration of their ancestors. The first Grand Duke was the Dragon Knight Anderson Sapphire, the second was Anflor Sapphire, the third was Andit Sapphire, the fourth was Anchek Sapphire, and now the fifth Grand Duke Andrew Sapphire. This was common knowledge among the aristocrats. If you don't even know who the Grand Dukes of the last few generations were, then the aristocrat is absolutely unqualified. There is no Grand Duke named Annette. While thinking, another pale face appeared and screamed, "We're done for. It's Andy's fleet." List suddenly jolted. And it was the name of the third Grand Duke. On one side it was shouting loyalty to Annette, and on the other side, it was screaming that Andit's fleet was chasing after them. In this way the answer in the fog was obvious. Annette should be a member of the Sapphire family who competed with Andit for the position of Grand Duke. He was probably the brother of Grand Duke Andit. Thinking that Marquis Cohen was killed because he participated in the palace coup, it could be seen that Marquis Cohen probably supported Annette. In the end, Annette won. Well, I already know this palace secret. So what should I do next? List looked at the empty cabin, then at the dense magic runes on the walls and quietly pondered. Pale faces continued to appear on the walls. Various screams were repeated. "They are chasing us. Damn it. We are finished. It is Andit's fleet. Loyal to His Highness Annette. Mom, I want to go home. Sir Great Magician, save us. Curtis, you madman." "No." The shrill screams made List feel annoyed, and time did not allow him to think about it in detail. The longer they stayed here, the more people on board might die. They would all be killing each other, just like Captain Moroto's son, the ship that encountered the Spectre ship. In the end, only 2 sailors came back alive. Whatever. List put the red blood sword back into the scabbard at his waist, took out a fine steel axe from the gem space, and then aimed it at the wall of the cabin. Bang. The wood of the wall splashed and the magic runes splashed everywhere. Dosen wanted to chase these magic runes, but he saw that the magic runes passed through him and flew back to the wall. Even the wood that was split by the axe gradually began to dissipate, and the wall was slowly restored. List did not believe it. He slashed the axe twice, but only a large piece of wood fell to the ground. Seeing that the wood seemed to gradually dissipate, new wood appeared on the wall. His brain moved and he directly picked up the board on the ground and threw it into the gem space. The next moment, the new wood shadow on the wall dissipated and could not be restored. The magic runes that should have been engraved on the wood also lost their carrier and floated quietly in the cabin. Liz smiled. It works. Next he kept swinging his battle axe, constantly destroying the walls, and throwing the cut boards into the gem space one by one. I don't care what's going on with your ghost ship. I'll tear down all 4 walls of your magic runes. Let's see how you're going to play tricks on me. While dismantling he panted. This was a strenuous job. If 4 walls are not enough, I'll go all out today and dismantle the whole ghost ship. Clang. Clang. Amidst Dosen's woof woof cheering and the pale screams that kept appearing and disappearing, List used a battle axe to cut down all 4 walls of the cabin, and stuffed a piece of wood into the gem space. Only the pillars on the outside of the wall were left, crumbling. Those magic runes all fell from the wooden boards and floated in the air. When the last wooden board was taken away by List, the magic runes seemed to have received a chain reaction and began to spin rapidly. Under List's surprised gaze, they scattered and reorganized, transforming into a female mage shrouded in a magic cloak. Chapter 250. Who are you? Why did you disturb my sleep? The female magician's cloak was also burning with a faint green light. Her figure and face could not be seen clearly. However, it could be felt that she was a petite woman. Her voice was a little erratic, and in such an environment, it seemed particularly gloomy. List had seen 36D ghosts before, so he was not too surprised by such a form of ghost. He just found it interesting that people could really exist in the form of a soul and still retain their own consciousness. He put away the fine steel axe and replaced it with the red blood sword. He mobilized the chi in his body and was ready to fight back at any time. List said, "Are you Curtis Truth?" "Curtis?" The female ghost magician bowed her head and seemed to be recalling. After a long time, she raised her head, and the green light in her eyes flashed. "That was my name before I self-exiled. Knight, why did you disturb my sleep?" "Self-exiled?" List was a little confused. He did not open the magic book, "To His Royal Highness Annette, Curtis Truth." Now that he thought about it, it might be a will written in a book. "It's not that I want to disturb your slumber. In fact, you're the one who disturbed my journey. My ship encountered a storm at sea, and then your specter ship approached and pulled me onto this strange specter ship." Ghost ship. The female ghost magician fell into thought again. Probably because she had been sleeping for too long, her mind was not very bright. Judging from the time when Grand Duke Andy ascended the throne, it had a history of more than 100 years. Has the goat become a ghost ship, Annette? Uncle Cohen? The ghost magician's voice became more and more ethereal as she fell into the memory of the past. List, however, did not care about the atmosphere at all. He interrupted rudely, "Stop, wait a minute. My friends have been bewitched by the specter and are killing each other on the deck. Can you dispel the specter first?" "I have self-exiled. The goat has become a ghost ship, which is not something I can control." The spectral sorcerer's ethereal voice suddenly became sharp. "My place of hibernation. You damn it, you actually destroyed my place of hibernation. The place of slumber you mentioned, is it the 4 walls engraved with magic runes? Damn it. I used the souls of the entire ship's crew as spellcasting materials to set up a cursed magic circle. It's a place of slumber that I used to exile myself." The specter mage was so angry that the green light all over her body was trembling, and the whole specter ship was shaking with her. The rotten wood fell piece by piece as if it would shatter at any moment. Using the souls of a ship's crew as a casting material? List's scalp went numb. He didn't expect the female specter in front of him to be such a cruel archmage when she was alive. No wonder some people called her a lunatic. So what if you're going to die? You actually dragged a whole boat of people along with you to live a life worse than death. Curtis, I have a whole new level of respect for you. I let them die because they deserved to die. On the mountain goat, they were either traitors who betrayed Annette or followers who were willing to sacrifice everything for him. This matter-of-fact tone was quite unpleasant. He was no longer in the mood to argue with the specter mage. He directly shouted, "Well, let's talk nonsense later. Now, you should release the control of the specter ship on my friends. If you don't want to, I will directly dismantle the mountain goat so that you won't even have a place to stand." "Where did you put my place of hibernation?" "That's the soul-sinking wood made from the remnant souls of dragons. It's impossible for you to destroy it? Where are they? Burned. Burned? Impossible. I really burned it. Otherwise, where else could they go? List held the red blood sword, thinking of getting useful information. Only by knowing the role of the so-called soul sinking could he threaten the Spectre Mage. Burned? The Spectre Mage trembled all over and the Spectre ship kept shaking. The creaking sound was endless, as if it would fall apart at any time. Since you've burned it, then you can go to hell. She suddenly turned into a green light and rushed towards List. List quickly erupted the fire-attributed chi in his body, raised the red blood sword and swung a big fire wave. His chi burned with flames, and when the Spectre Mage rushed over, it instantly exploded. Boom. The Spectre Magician was immediately blown into pieces, transforming back into magical runes that revolved in the air and condensed into the image of Curtis Truth. She stared at List with hatred and did not attack again. You didn't burn the soul-sinking wood. You can't burn the soul-sinking wood. After my soul exiled itself, it has merged with the soul-sinking wood. If you burn the soul-sinking wood, I will also disappear and not continue to exist. It seems that you have regained your senses. List was still holding the red blood sword, highly vigilant. The soul-sinking wood was indeed not burned, but it is in my hands. If you want to go back, then first deactivate the Spectre ship and let my friends regain their senses. List's magic eyes had already seen that the people on the deck were still circling and occasionally killing each other. Many people had already fallen. Return the soul-sinking wood to me, or all your companions will die. The Spectre Mage's voice returned to its previous gloomy tone. In that case, I can only dismantle the Spectre ship and find a way to save them myself. List directly ordered Dosen. Dosen multiple rock thorns. Buff, buff. Dosen's rock thorns were randomly placed, and the thick rock thorns pierced the Spectre ship with sawdust everywhere. Then one could see the rock thorns falling into the sea one after another, as if the wood on the ship did not exist. However, it was clear that the rock thorns broke many planks, and the broken planks could not be restored. Woof woof. For a while, Dosen had been unable to use his strength. Now that he had received the order, how could he hold back? The rock thorns pierced randomly as if they were free. The degree of violence was far greater than List's. Under its violent piercing, the Spectre ship soon made an unbearable cracking sound, and the keel of the entire ship seemed to be broken. Then the outline of the Spectre ship, which was outlined with magic power, slowly dimmed. Watching the Spectre ship being damaged bit by bit. The Spectre Mage's chest heaved violently and finally, unable to bear it, she said, "Tell your dog to stop, and I will tell you how to break the banishing fog of the Spectre ship." Banishing fog? Between reality and illusion is the source of magic power, the place of exile for souls. The Spectre ship, sailing on the ocean of the land of exile, will take away everything it encounters. The Spectre Mage said irritably, "You won't understand even if I explain. Now do as I say." Speak. The bow of the ship is the door to the real world, and the sheephead flag on the mast is the beacon of the land of exile. Take down that flag and insert it on the dragon head of the bow of the ship, and it will guide the Spectre ship away from the land of exile and back to the real world. At that time you will be free from the Spectre ship. What about you? Return my soul to me and continue my self-exile. I brought disaster to Annette and Uncle Cohen. Only the eternal exile of the soul is the best home and atonement. At this moment the Spectre Mage. The face under the hood, which was originally unclear, became clear. Chapter 251. Thump, thump, thump. List hurriedly left the cabin and came to the deck. He kicked away the two knights who were fighting each other and rushed directly to the mast. He felt that what Curtis said was true. After all, the soul-sinking wood was in his hands and he had the ability to dismantle the ship. The other party would not dare to play tricks. The mast was very high, but for the elite Earth Knight it was easy to climb up. The goat head flag was at the top of the mast, fluttering without any wind. The green flame was not the flag, but the goat head logo was burning. List didn't know what it was made of, but the goat head was a real goat head, not a painting. Pull out the goat head flag and insert it on the dragon head of the bow, so that the door to the real world can be opened. He stretched out his hand ready to pull out the flag. But suddenly his heart tightened. He had always been cautious, but now he reminded himself, why did I believe Curtis so easily? This is an evil sorcerer who can use the souls of a ship's crew as a casting material. You can't believe a single word she says. He looked down. He quickly suppressed his urgent mood and sank his will into the gem space. He decided to open the magic book, To His Royal Highness Annette, Curtis Truth, trying to find some kind of answer from this suicide note. The first page. 2 lines of glowing green serpentines were written with an unknown pigment. My eternal love Annette, is everything okay? I made this decision so that I could meet you again in the land of exile. Perhaps I would sink into oblivion for all eternity. 2 evil souls, the blood of countless living people, all the sins, how can I bear it? The words were a little mysterious, with the faint affectation of a female literati. He didn't understand. The second page. It was a text in the form of a preface. When I heard the bad news of Uncle Cohen, my heart was dead. Just because of my and Annette's sinful thoughts, the whole family was buried with him. Perhaps we should calmly accept this short but beautiful love, instead of hoping to achieve longevity and steal the power of the Sapphire Dragon. The Dragon City Lord plan has failed, and Annette's soul has been exiled. I have lost my love and then my family. For me, this world has no meaning. Perhaps I should continue to study the ancient sorcerer's notes and transform myself into a lich walking between life and death. If I can walk freely in the land of exile, maybe I can see Annette again, then all this torture and pain will become meaningful. After turning this page, the strange existence of the lich appeared in List's mind. He didn't have time to think and turned to the third page. The third page was strange. He drew a picture with an eye in the middle of the triangle. This was the Eye of Truth, representing a magician's knowledge and exploration of the world. But in each corner of the triangle, there were a few more nouns. On the top corner there was matter, and next to it were alchemist, vampire, and necromancer. On the left corner there was magic power, and next to it were sorcerer and druid. On the right corner there was spirit, and next to it were wizard, warlock, prophet, succubus, and shaman. Below the pattern of the Eye of Truth, there was a word, night. Behind it was a line of scribbled serpentines, heresy, desecrate magic like a beast, violently circulate chi, oppressing the living space of the sorcerer. If one day the age of magic comes, burn all the night, let the sorcerer rule the world and seek the truth. If this was written by Curtis herself, it meant that she was a fanatical believer in magic. This was already a religious evil, not good, not good. List instinctively hated the word heresy. His eyes stayed on the words alchemist, wizard, and druid for a few seconds, then he stopped looking and continued to turn the page. From the 4th page onwards, the content of the book became research notes. There was only one research topic: the possibility of soul stripping, repeating the experiment. According to List's quick reading, it seemed that in ancient times, a wizard had developed the phylactery technology. Placing one's soul in the phylactery, thus becoming an immortal lich, crossing life and death, real and illusory, becoming an incredible state. This kind of record could not be distinguished. Curtis mainly repeated this technology to verify the method of stripping the soul. At first, she experimented on small animals, then slowly developed to humans and finally on sorcerers of the same kind. On the 16th page, she completed the experiment and verified that the soul could be stripped and temporarily existed, but it must have something suitable for the soul. From the 17th page onwards, she began the second research topic, phylactery experiment and production. A total of 25 pages were experiment notes on this topic. Curtis was like a genius. On the 42nd page, the phylactery experiment was successful, and she developed the soul-sinking wood, which could be used as a phylactery to store the soul. There was also a magic circle for storing the soul, the self-exile magic circle. These are the 4 walls that I cut and took back. Using this magic circle, the soul can be stripped out and banished to the soul-sinking wood. Time waited for no man, and he had no time to think. He quickly turned the page, trying to find the content about the ghost ship. After turning about 30 pages, he skipped 4 small research notes about the lich's phylactery. Finally, he saw a ship on the 74th page, a very detailed 3-masted ship. Even the goat's head flag on the main mast was clearly visible. This was the goat before it became a ghost ship. The next 26 pages were all about the modification of the goat, or rather, the setting up of the magic circle. Curtis extended the phylactery technology to the entire ship, imprisoning the souls of all the crew members on the ship to protect their own phylacteries. According to her speculation in the last part of the suicide note, the ship would gradually break through the boundary point between reality and illusion with the constant erosion of the magic circle, and enter the land of exile. The land of exile. Sorcerers believed that there was a place at the boundary of the mutual transformation of magic, matter, and spirit. Time and space were indescribable, eternal and ephemeral, and only souls could walk in it. This place was the land of exile. People who committed the most heinous crimes were usually exiled to the land of exile by the nobles. To put it bluntly, it was to perform some kind of magic to euthanize people. However, sorcerers believed that the souls of humans who died in this way would enter the land of exile. Curtis's ultimate goal was to use the goat to break through the boundary point between the land of exile and the real world and send her soul into it. Then she would go after her lover, Annette. However, she did not expect that the goat became a ghost ship, wandering between the land of exile and the real world, and did not send her soul to the land of exile. Women are really crazy. Crazy for love? It's not enough for one person to die but also to kill countless people. Liszt had goosebumps all over his body, and at the same time he was secretly shocked. The goat's head flag is placed on the dragon's head, not to leave the land of exile but to the land of exile. This woman still wants to harm me. Fortunately, he was quick-witted and opened the magic book. Chapter 252. The sheephead flag and the ship's bow were magic equipment made of special materials. When he was ready to destroy them, Liszt was reluctant. He wrapped the sheephead flag with his own chi and threw it into the gem space. Then he removed the sapphire dragon and threw it into the gem space. The gem space, which was not large to begin with, was almost full. Without the suppression of the sheephead flag and the sapphire dragon bow, the fog surrounding the ghost ship gradually dispersed, and the people trapped in the fog were about to wake up. The planks were decaying, aging at a speed visible to the naked eye. It's finally over. Liszt breathed a sigh of relief, hugging Dosun's neck, enjoying this great sense of accomplishment. But suddenly he heard the shrill scream of the ghost magician. No! Damn night! You destroyed the goat. No. You can't destroy the goat. Liszt stood on the decaying deck. Watching the fog gradually thinning, he was indifferent to Curtis's scream. He was very curious about a lich, like Curtis. He was also very curious about the Dragon Domain Lord plan. He even wanted to slowly study the specter ship under his feet. But the other party was very cunning and he had no means of checks and balances. Staying was suicide. So, you'd better die. Don't go to the land of exile to harm people, to harm souls. No. A sharp voice came from the cabin as if it could pierce the eardrum. Knight, don't. Don't destroy the goat, don't destroy my soul-sinking wood. Her voice was sad and shrill. Knight, please stop. I am willing to offer my phylactery. Knight, take my phylactery. Your phylactery is already in my hands, those soul-sinking wood. Liszt sneered coldly. At this time, this evil magician still dared to fool him. It was an insult to his intelligence. No. The ghost magician screamed, that is just the place where my soul sleeps, it is the place where I self-exiled my soul. Before reaching the land of exile, I need the soul-sinking wood to protect the integrity of my soul. My phylactery, I give you my phylactery, it is the key to my return to the real world. Shrill screams reverberated in his ears. He felt that the other party was still trying to fool him. But the ghost ship was about to collapse. According to His Royal Highness Annette, Curtis Truth, after losing the ghost ship, even with the existence of the soul-sinking wood, she could not continue to maintain her lich state, and her soul would collapse directly. The ghost ship was one with her. There was no reason for him to play tricks at such a critical juncture. Thinking of this, he held Dosun's hand and went down to the cabin again. Seeing the specter, the green light that formed her body was already unstable, trembling as if it would dissipate at any time. Where's your phylactery? The specter magician glared at Liszt with hatred, stretched out her left hand and thrust it into her chest. At that moment, it was as if his chest had been torn apart, and a green light seeped out from within. Then he slowly pulled his hand out. He clenched his hand into a fist and quickly handed it to Liszt. He spread his fingers, revealing a blue gemstone ring on his palm. Take it. Hurry up and put back the flag and the flag. The mountain goat is about to collapse. The red blood sword picked up the sapphire ring. After confirming that there were no traps, Liszt picked it up and looked at it. He did not see anything special. This thing is your phylactery. Don't lie to me. I don't have time to lie to you. This is a token of love given to me by Annette. I have no grudge against you. I don't even know you. I just want to take my complete consciousness into the land of exile to find Annette's soul. The specter stopped talking and just looked at Liszt quietly. If I crush it, will you die? No, my soul is in the soul-sinking wood. The phylactery is just the key to ensure that I can return to the real world and not get lost in the land of exile. If I fix the ghost ship, what about my friend? The ghost ship is close to collapse and is unable to continue sailing in the land of exile. It will no longer interfere with the real world. Soon it will disappear on the edge of the land of exile and the real world. If I fix the ghost ship, are you sure you will leave immediately and no longer interfere? If you return my soul-sinking wood to me, I will immediately disappear with the ghost ship. Without the soul-sinking wood, my soul has no sustenance. If I enter the land of exile, I will also lose myself and become a ghost in the land of exile. I only hope you can protect my phylactery. It is the only hope for me to come back. I understand. Liszt turned around, quickly put the sapphire ring into the space gem, and then left the cabin without looking back. He neither agreed nor disagreed. Looking at the back of Liszt leaving, the spectre magician, who was almost unable to maintain her figure, had a gleam in her eyes. She seemed to hope that in the future she would follow the ghost ship into the land of exile and find the love of her life, Annette Sapphire. However, she waited for a moment and found that the ghost ship was still collapsing. The rotten planks were completely cracked and another three-masted sailboat emerged. She suddenly realized. No. She shouted, no. 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 Damn night. You lied to me. Standing on the deck, Liszt looked at the deck under his feet. One moment, it became the decaying deck of the ghost ship, and the next moment, it became the deck of a fast sailboat. The shrouding fog had dispersed, the shadow of the ghost ship gradually faded, and the fast sailboat that disappeared was becoming real. In other words, he had gradually returned from the illusion to the real world. Paris, Captain Lydon, and others around him gradually woke up and looked at everything in front of them in confusion. The smell of blood was strong. This chaos between reality and illusion had killed many people. Fortunately, Levis and Olvera, who were pulled into the cabin by Liszt, were safe and sound. Paris, Captain Lydon, and Deputy Butler Rainieri were all safe and sound. List's two serving men, Tom and Thomas, were smart enough to lie on the ground and pretend to be dead, so they were not hacked to death by the night. But he also saw the bodies of his three retainer knight, Sean Redface, York Lighthead, and Theodore Rotsock. The three teenagers had not had time to show their youthful vigor before they were forever stuck in the sea. No. 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 Damn night. You lied to me. His ears faintly heard Curtis's shrill scream. Liszt had no sympathy. Such an evil and perverted mage. Death is your final destination. Don't come out to harm people again. I, Liszt Tulip, have a bottom line of justice in my heart. No. I will curse you. You damn night. With Curtis's last scream, the ghost ship suddenly shattered into powder, blown away by the sea breeze and disappeared without a trace. The dark clouds in the sky also quickly dispersed, and the sun behind the clouds shone again. After carefully checking the surrounding environment and confirming that there were no traces of Curtis, Liszt dispersed the magic eyes and smiled faintly. Curse me? Do you know my name? Coincidentally. Chapter 253. The ghost ship was like a phantom, coming and going in a hurry. Apart from Liszt and Dosen, no one knew what had happened on the ghost ship. Only the corpses on the deck silently told of the terrible encounter just now. The surviving sailors cooperated with the retainer knight and began to clean up the corpses of the dead. The sudden appearance of the ghost ship killed a total of 23 people. Sailors, retainers, servants were all dead and many people were injured. Fortunately, none of the 4 aristocrats on the ship was injured. It didn't matter if Captain Loudon died or not, but the Liszt siblings must not have an accident. Once something happened, not only would Marquis Merlin be furious, but so would Lee William. At that time it wouldn't just be a few people who died. Liszt, what do you think? Levis's voice pulled Liszt back from his trance. He was still thinking about the dog-eat-dog love between Curtis Veritas and Annette Sapphire. The woman, crazy for love, actually restored the means of the wizards of ancient times, turned herself into a half-human, half-ghost lich, and made a legendary thing like the ghost ship. Now the ghost ship had collapsed, but the sheephead flag, the sapphire dragon bow, the soul-sinking wood, and the sapphire ring were still in his gem space. It was a constant reminder that the ghost ship was not an illusion. No one thought of encountering the ghost ship. Compared to sea monsters and storms, it was really unexpected. Therefore, the deputy butler Rainieri asked the 3 siblings with a heavy heart whether they should continue to Red Crab Island or immediately return to Coral Island. Liszt, who recovered, asked faintly, "Brother, sister, what do you think?" Levis frowned. "I'm inclined to go back. The atmosphere of the New Year's Day is gone, and many people died. But this year's New Year's Day may be grandfather's last New Year's Day. If we can't accompany grandfather, it will leave him with great regret. Since we are all right, let's move on. Ulvera, what do you think? You decide. Ulvera's face was still a little swollen. 2 faint handprints could be seen, which Liszt slapped to wake her up. Of course she didn't know all this. Liszt did not reveal the secret of the Spectre ship to the public. It was related to a palace coup 100 years ago, so there was no need to say it out loud. It might even expose his secret. He might as well be like the others and treat this as a strange and muddled encounter. Anyway, no one knew what kind of existence the Spectre ship was. When the mist covered their faces, they were already in an illusion. They couldn't see or hear anything. They didn't even notice the collapse of the Spectre ship and Curtis's miserable scream before his death. After Levis made up his mind, the speedboat continued to advance towards Red Crab Island. Captain Maroto was not dead, and the remaining sailors were barely enough to steer the ship, so the voyage was not too affected. However, the atmosphere on the ship was not as cheerful as it was when they first arrived. Ulvera, who liked to make her presence known, had probably seen her weak side. She used the excuse of feeling unwell to hide in the cabin and lick her wounds. Levis and Captain Loudon had to deal with the dead people on the ship. Rainieri looked worried. Although the appearance of the Spectre ship had nothing to do with him, this incident definitely did not add any points to his reputation. Liszt was still enjoying the breeze on the deck with Dosen. He looked a little absent-minded. Others regarded it as a dream, but he deeply experienced the secrets of the Spectre ship. There were still many questions in his mind. He originally thought that this world was a world of dragons, elves, knights and mages. He didn't expect the Spectre ship and the liches to appear one after another. Then he thought of the rare professions recorded in the magic book, to His Highness Annette, Curtis Truth. Druid, necromancer, vampire, enchanter, prophet and so on. There was also the land of exile and the dragon domain lord plan. It didn't sound so simple. I hate these messy existences. Why don't I just cultivate my combat energy in peace? Why do I have to do all this messy magic? His absent-minded gaze fell on the deck. Several Squire Knight were tying up the corpses. Paris was guarding beside Liszt. She saw Liszt's absent-minded expression and followed his gaze to the corpses. She asked aloud, "Lord Baron, are you sad for Sean York and Theodore?" Liszt came back to his senses. Sean York and Theodore? Only then did he remember that these 3 people were his retainer knights. Their deaths were indeed sad, even though he was just thinking about the ghost ship. Nodding slightly, Liszt's tone was full of melancholy. They were still very young and underage. I thought it was just an easy trip, but it took their lives. No one wants to see an accident like this, but you've done enough. Sean York and Theodore are lucky to be able to follow a merciful lord, Paris said. Did I do enough? What did I do to these 3 people? Liszt was a little confused about what was going on in Paris's mind, but he clearly felt that Paris's attitude towards him was getting closer and gentler. In the past he might have secretly rejoiced. It was so simple to win people's hearts. But seeing Curtis's crazy look, he shuddered and felt that women or female subordinates should be kept at a suitable distance and not play with fire. Although a woman like Curtis was rare, who could guarantee that he wouldn't meet another Curtis? I'm ashamed to have done a little work. The green flames of the sheephead flag solidified, and the green flames of the sapphire dragon bow also solidified. In the gem space everything was still. Liszt wanted to take them out and see what changes would happen, but he did not take the risk. For the rest of the voyage, he acted as if he was not in high spirits like everyone else. In fact, he had been reading the magic books in the gem space. The book written by Curtis Truth, he had only roughly read it before. Now it was time to savor it. If one was not a mage, reading the experimental content written by a great mage was tantamount to reading a heavenly book. Many things were unclear, even if there were some illustrations to explain. More importantly, most of the content of this book was about how to transform a mage into a lich. Liszt did not think he wanted to become a lich, a creature that was neither human nor ghost. The transformation of the ghost ship is also very interesting. Maybe in the future I can find a mage to study it. I can also make a ghost ship and see what the land of exile looks like. Unfortunately, there is no record of the keel fixing technique in this book. Maybe Curtis has mastered the keel fixing technique. The keel fixing technique was owned by Marquis Cohen. His family's mages could embed the bones of dragons, subdragons, and dragon beasts into the keel of ships to expel sea monsters. This technology was very coveted by Liszt, but it had been lost, and the only one who might have mastered it, Curtis, was killed by him. Chapter 254. On the day before the New Year's Day, the three siblings finally arrived at the Long Taro Castle under the escort of the night squad of Red Crab Island. The news of the encounter with the ghost ship was quickly transmitted to the ears of Marquis Merlin. Levis, Olvera, List, I'm relieved to see that you are safe and sound. You don't know how worried I was when I heard about the ghost ship. Meopel rode far away from the Long Taro Castle. When he saw the three siblings, he kept saying, Grandfather, Sir Father, and Sir Mother were worried about you. If we had known that we would encounter such an inconceivable existence like the ghost ship, we would have sent the family's fleet to pick you up. Whether it was aristocratic politeness or true feelings, Meopel's attitude moved the three siblings. The unhappiness of the encounter with the ghost ship also dissipated a lot. This was not a disaster that could be predicted or avoided by humans, so they could only blame their bad luck. There was no need to vent their anger on others. Moreover, they had not suffered any damage. The atmosphere returned to its usual harmony. At the gate of the Long Taro Castle, List saw his uncle and aunt. Uncle Masiro was tall and thin, handsome, and somewhat similar to the portrait of Melissa in Tulip Castle. Although his aunt had many crow's feet at the corners of her eyes, she was still a noble lady with an otherworldly temperament. Young List, you have grown up. You have inherited all of Melissa's merits and are even more handsome than your cousin. Aunt said amiably. List bowed to express his thanks. There were always people who praised him for his handsomeness. Meopel spread out his hands. Mother, please don't praise others behind your son's back, it will damage my self-confidence. Masiro saw that everyone had greeted him and said, Don't stand outside the door and talk. Come in, your grandfather is waiting for you. He has heard about the ghost ship and is worried about you. They entered the magnificent Long Taro Castle. The three siblings naturally went to see the master of the castle, Marquis Merlin, one of the 7 marquises of the Grand Duchy. Marquis Merlin was walking on the castle's winding corridor with a cane. The Sky Knight who once soared in the sky looked no different from an ordinary old man. Grandfather, the three siblings shouted. Marquis Merlin pushed away the servant who wanted to help him. His expression was as dignified as ever. Well, you're here. I know about the ghost ship. Are you all scared out of your wits? Of course not. With a long sword in hand and battle energy in my body, even if it's the Spectre ship, what can it do? Levis immediately boasted. It was not exactly boasting. His courage in the face of danger on the ship was commendable. At the very least, List acknowledged Levis. At that time, not only did Levis not run away, but he was also very concerned about the safety of his younger siblings. He had the responsibility of an elder brother. Well said. With chi, a long sword, a horse and a spear, a knight is invincible. Marquis Merlin stretched out his hand and patted Levis' shoulder heavily. Unfortunately, I've never seen a Spectre ship in the aquamarine sea for nearly 40 years. It's a pity. Others were afraid that they would not be able to hide in time, but Marquis Merlin felt regretful. The horizons brought about by different strengths were indeed different. Perhaps the Spectre ship was not a rare thing for Marquis Merlin. At his level, his understanding of the world would definitely be deeper. After he finished speaking, he said to Masiro, Have you made any arrangements? Send the fleet of Red Crab Island and the Orders of Chivalry to patrol the sea and find the Spectre ship. If you can capture it, capture it. If not, defeat it. I have informed Count Sark to lead a team to investigate. I have also invited Great Wizard Okado to accompany him. Don't hesitate. Patrol the sea between Red Crab Island and Coral Island. If it's a pirate or a ghost ship, destroy it directly. I don't care if it's a natural disaster or a conspiracy. The anger of Long Taro Castle must be vented. The Marquis said lightly. Masiro nodded hurriedly. Rest assured, Father. I will definitely warn Count Sark. No, tell Sark to come see me first. Yes. After dealing with the arrangements for the Spectre ship, the Marquis said to the three siblings, Forget about the Spectre ship and celebrate the new year in Long Taro Castle. Tomorrow your Aunt Melinda will come over with her 2 boys. Young people can always find something happy when they get together. Yes, Grandfather. Aunt came over and informed. Tea and snacks have been set up in the living room. Father, take the children to the living room to talk. It's cold in the corridor. Don't treat me like a waste, my chi is still boiling. Marquis Merlin did not refuse the proposal. Surrounded by the 3 siblings, he returned to the living room. Drinking hot milk tea, they chatted about their daily lives. Aunt was a talkative noblewoman. She always led the conversation and asked the 3 siblings about their respective development. Naturally, List also inevitably talked about his flower town. He briefly talked about some of the town's development, such as the production of flour soap, the extraction of seafood oyster sauce, and the birth of the thorn sprite, Ella. Marquis Merlin liked to listen to these contents. He solemnly said, "To have a sprite that produces potions, List, is a blessing from the glory of the night, but it also requires one's own efforts. The Sky Knight is not just your brother's goal, you must also have this goal." "Grandfather, of course I understand. My talent is indeed mediocre, but my vision is not narrow-minded." At this time, Meopel suddenly interjected, "Grandfather, you may not know, but List also brought an intermediate World of Warcraft. It is his pet." An intermediate World of Warcraft as a pet. It is Dosen, a flying dust dog I raised since childhood. It accidentally ate a bloodline fruit and evolved into an intermediate World of Warcraft, but it can only release one type of magic. Bring it over and let me have a look. Marquis Merlin's legs were inconvenient, so List let the manservant Thomas bring Dosen to the living room. Fortunately, the living room of Longtaro Castle was very large, and Dosen's huge figure was not conspicuous here. Woof woof. Dosen came to List's feet and meekly wagged its tail. It could already ignore any human and freely enter and exit any scene. "What a big black dog!" Ant exclaimed. She was obviously a qualified noblewoman who lived like a princess all year round. Apart from eating World of Warcraft meat, she might even rarely see wild World of Warcraft. "It is bigger than a tiger, yet it is really as obedient as a dog. List, how did you tame it?" List smiled faintly. Dosen was his face. "I raised it like a dog. If it was disobedient, I would whip it, and if it was obedient, I would reward it with jerky." Raising World of Warcraft like a dog, incredible. List, you have made my reverence for World of Warcraft completely disappear. Meopel said exaggeratedly. Masilo nodded and evaluated. In terms of size, it is qualified as an intermediate World of Warcraft. It is much bigger than an ordinary flying dust dog. On Coral Island, no one is more favored by the Knight's glory than List. He is a lucky guy. Levis looked at Dosen enviously and said while resisting his desire. Marquis Merlin just shot a glance at Dosen. He had seen countless World of Warcraft, including many advanced World of Warcraft. Chapter 255. Whether Dosen was comparable to a Sky Knight, List did not know. At least, he would have to wait for Dosen to learn new magic before he could make a judgment. In World of Warcraft without magic, only some powerful beasts, and the current Dosen was still immature. After chatting about family matters, the topic returned to the ghost ship. "So, Maroto is not crazy. I know him, he is an excellent sailing captain." Marquis Merlin had a very good impression of Maroto. But his son was swallowed by the ghost ship, and he also encountered the ghost ship. It seems that he is not suitable to continue as a captain and should retire. As he spoke, Marquis Merlin had already decided on Maroto's retirement. "Grandfather, since the ghost ship is the ship of Marquis Cohen, then do you know what kind of person he is?" Meopel asked curiously. Marquis Merlin sat in a chair, his hands leaning on a cane as he pondered. "When Marquis Cohen was still alive, my father wasn't even born. When my grandfather was young, the Longtaro clan was only a count. The surname of Marquis Cohen's family is Magic Goat. The Magic Goat family is very different from ordinary knight families. They attach great importance to magic. The Magic Goat family was a follower of the first Sapphire Grand Duke, the Dragon Knight Anderson Sapphire. After the founding of the country, they were conferred the title of Marquis. This family raised a kind of World of Warcraft called Rock Goat. They raised it on a large scale, and the meat of the rock goat was sold well both at home and abroad. The blankets and quilts woven from the hair of the rock goat were also products that the aristocracy scrambled for. But the members of this family, in addition to cultivating chi, also cultivated magic. The men cultivated chi while the women cultivated magic. Relying on the technology of making keel bones with magic, the Magic Goat family ships could travel the sea unimpeded, helping the Grand Duchy of Sapphire's orders of chivalry on an expedition to the continent. It could be said that at that time, the Magic Goat family's authority was second only to the Sapphire family, and they talked and laughed with each other. Cohen Magic Goat is a powerful Sky Knight who follows Annette Sapphire, the eldest son of the second-generation Grand Duke. However, there is a very troublesome problem. Annette was seriously injured during the campaign. After being diagnosed by the court doctor, it is determined that he will die early. Since they were family, Marquis Merlin did not mind chatting about palace secrets. When the nobles had nothing to do, they liked to talk about palace secrets, just like how the servants liked to gossip about the nobles. In order to help Annette, the mages of the Magic Goat family decided to steal the power of the Sapphire Dragon and coexist with Annette, making Annette a dragon domain lord, sharing half of the dragon's lifespan. As far as I know, the Emperor of the Unsetting Radiance Empire is a dragon domain lord, and he has been in power for 200 years. Lord of Dragon City? This was the second time Liszt had heard of this term. The first time was in Kurdish Truth's magic book, which recorded the failure of the Dragon City Lord plan. Now he learned from Marquis Merlin that the Dragon Lord could share the lifespan of a dragon. This made Liszt's eyes widen. If one could pursue longevity, who would be willing to die early? A mere 100 years of life was simply not enough. If one became a lich that was neither a human nor a ghost, longevity would be meaningless. However, it sounded like the Dragon Domain Lord only stole the power of a dragon and could still guarantee the youth of humans. Marquis Merlin felt the rapid breathing of several young people and could not help but smile. The Dragon Domain Lord is really tempting. When I was young, I threatened the Sapphire Dragon to share my lifespan with it, haha. But the requirements to become a Dragon Domain Lord are harsh, and the consequences of angering a dragon are miserable. Dragons were the world's top existences of power. Families with dragons could not wait to please them. Who would dare to steal the power of a dragon? Moreover, a dragon could normally live for 1,000 years and shelter a family for hundreds of years. However, after sharing their lifespan with the Dragon Domain Lord, leaving only half of their lifespan was obviously not worth it. He paused with his walking stick. Marquis Merlin returned to the story. Annette's plan was discovered by the third-generation Grand Duke, his younger brother, Grand Duke Andy, so Annette's behavior angered the second-generation Grand Duke. The second-generation Grand Duke immediately banished Annette's soul, passed the Duke's title to Grand Duke Andy, and then personally captured Cohen Magic Goat. After all, Cohen Magic Goat was powerful and had the help of the two great wizards of the family. Not only did it not surrender, but it also counterattacked and seriously injured the second-generation Grand Duke. If it wasn't for the powerful strength of the Sapphire Dragon that protected the second-generation Grand Duke at the critical moment, the result would have been unpredictable. In the end, Cohen Magic Goat and the two great wizards were suppressed, and the second-generation Grand Duke also died from his injuries. The young third-generation Grand Duke Andy took advantage of the situation and completely destroyed the Magic Goat family. More than 100 years had passed. Except for a few people who knew about this past, it had long been forgotten. I didn't expect that Cohen Magic Goat's soul would not go away. After dying for more than 100 years, it still did not forget to toss around the ghost ship. Marquis Merlin snorted. It must be the means of those magicians. Magicians like madmen like to study evil and strange magic. Although sometimes magicians were needed to make potions and magic equipment, it did not prevent a knight like Marquis Merlin from openly discriminating against magicians. The luncheon was very sumptuous. It was just a family meal, but it was more sumptuous than the large dinner party that Liszt attended last time he came here. However, Liszt's current living conditions were not as good as before, and his taste had already improved, so he did not feel that the food was very delicious. Instead, he was a little uneasy. Everything was because of the Dragon City Lord mentioned by Marquis Merlin. When he did not know the meaning, he only read the magic book briefly, but now that he knew the meaning, he could not be at ease. It was as if another door to a new world had been opened outside the Dragon Knight. He once felt that his biggest wish since he crossed over was to become a Dragon Knight. Only by riding a dragon would his life not be in vain. He did not have much of a pursuit of longevity, and felt that it was impossible. After all, a Dragon Knight would also be a pile of dirt after 100 years. Even if there was such a thing as a lich, seeing Curtis's miserable state, he did not feel that he would like to be a lich. However, the appearance of the Dragon City Lord had suddenly aroused his desire for longevity. Who would want to die if they could live? Who would not want to live freely for a few hundred years? There was a song that was sung very well, I really want to live for another 500 years. Liszt had never seen through the world of mortals and was indifferent to life and death. When there was no chance, of course he would be very open-minded, but now that there was a chance, how could he not fight for it? Eating the fine white bread, he suddenly set a new goal in his heart. In this life, I not only want to ride a dragon and become a dragon knight at the peak of power. I also want to conquer another dragon, a young dragon, and then become a Dragon City Lord. A dragon's lifespan is 1,000 years and I have to borrow at least 400 years. 400 years of borrowing life, 100 years of lifespan, exactly 500 years. Not much, 500 years was barely enough. Explore the world, pursue the truth behind fate, and at the same time solve the reason why he crossed over. Chapter 256. In the afternoon, Count Shauka came to Longtaro Castle to inquire about the extermination of the pirates and the ghost ship. List and his siblings needed to provide him with some clues to confirm the ghost ship. "I don't like Shauka," Miopal, who came to call List, said in a low voice. "In fact, I don't like the two counts of Red Crab Island, especially Shauka." List, who had just woken up, asked curiously, "Why?" "They lack reverence for the Longtaro Castle." List nodded. He understood that Uncle Masiro's strength was not enough to establish enough prestige. As the next Marquis of Red Crab Island, he lacked the temperament to convince his followers. Miopal continued, "This year grandfather's health is not good. Red Crab Island did not respond to the Grand Duke's expedition order. There is some noise below. I know that Shauka is the source of the noise." After a moment, List met Count Shauka. The Count's full name was Shauka Broccoli, and his surname was derived from his broccoli sprite. He was tall and mighty and his voice was very loud. Thanks to Miopal's suggestion, List paid special attention to Count Shauka's attitude during the questioning and found that he was still full of awe towards Marquis Merlin. However, he was somewhat disrespectful towards Masiro and Miopal. Or rather, it could not be said to be disrespectful. It should be said that his status was very level. His conversation with Masiro was not rude, but it also did not make people feel that Masiro would be his future lord. He placed the two on the same line. Then he treated Miopal with a condescending attitude of an elder. It was no wonder that Miopal was unhappy with him. No one would like their own follower to put on the airs of an elder, even though Miopal was not the Marquis of Red Crab Island and was only the heir of an heir. But in the knight system, Miopal was the lord and Shauka was the follower. The relationship between the lord and the follower was clear. No wonder when I first came to Red Crab Island, Miopal came to rope me in. The structure of Red Crab Island is clearly that the lord is weak and the servants are strong. Once Grandfather Merlin dies, Uncle Masiro might not be able to control the overall situation of Red Crab Island. As a lord, he couldn't control his followers. Then the ending would be very awkward. The follower would leave the lord, which was the inevitable result. A lord that even his followers would leave him was definitely the biggest joke among the nobles. List suddenly understood why his cousin still pursued the Grand Duke's youngest daughter despite knowing that she had a bad reputation. He wanted to borrow the princess's power to suppress the followers of Red Crab Island. A small number of people was not a good thing for a noble family. Then should I come to Red Crab Island to develop? With my current development, becoming a viscount is not an option. If I show my strength in the future, my uncle and cousin will probably rely on me more. It will be easy for me to become an earl. List's mind swayed. He really wanted to take a shortcut. Compared to exchanging one's life for a title on the battlefield, how could it be easier to learn how to curry favor? Even so, he couldn't give up his business on Black Horse Island and switch to Red Crab Island for the time being. Moreover, the effect of adding flowers to the brocade was far inferior to providing timely help. He suddenly thought of a picture. If he had become a Sky Knight and obtained the title of Viscount, but his father was still an earl, then how could he surpass his father and become an earl? At that time he would either become a direct earl of the Grand Duke, or follow a marquis who could be given the title of earl. At that time his uncle's family, who was struggling to support Red Crab Island, would beg him to come to Red Crab Island. The treatment of an earl at that time would definitely be many times better than going to Red Crab Island now. Thinking like this would be unfair to his family. But the affection between the nobles always gave way to interests. List also understood that if he couldn't show his value, the Taro family would never pay anything for him. Of course I'm thinking too much now. This time the Taro family hasn't started to win me over yet. While thinking, Count Sark was already clear about the cause and effect of the ghost ship. He immediately saluted Marquis Merlin and said, "Sir, please rest assured. After the new year, I will immediately lead the fleet and orders of chivalry to flatten the waters around Red Crab Island, and let all those who have gossiped about Red Crab Island shut their mouths." "Very well, I look forward to your performance." Sark saluted again, nodded to Masiro and Miopal, and strode away. New Year's Day was the first day of each year, January 1st. Everyone in all countries would choose to put down their work on this day to celebrate the arrival of the new year. In the morning he woke up before the sky was bright as usual. Lying in bed, List called out the long-lost smoke mission. Mission. After a year of hard work, even a lord needs to relax, enjoy the upcoming New Year's Day, think about next year's development path, broaden interpersonal relationships, or do nothing and wait for the New Year's Day to end. Reward, unknown reward. Unknown reward, mission still not completed, probably need to wait until after today. Around 10:30 in the morning. List was teasing the spitting pachyphyte sprite while the maid, Anna, who had helped him wipe his face, kept casting flirtatious glances at him. At this time, a servant of the Longtaro castle came to inform him that a new guest had arrived. New Year's Day was a family festival. Visiting the Longtaro castle today, there was no need to ask to know that List's aunt and her family had arrived. Sure enough, at the castle gate, List, together with his brother and sister, saw his mother's sister, the second daughter of the Marquis Melinda Longtaro. Her husband, Roland Pine Cone, Viscount of Longtail City, and her two sons, Russell Pine Cone and Raleigh Pine Cone. There was also Russell's wife and his daughter, who had just turned 1 year old and was wrapped up like a cotton ball. Russell and Raleigh were List's cousins. The order of age among the cousins was approximately 25 years old Meepaul Longtaro, 24 years old Levis Tulip, 22 years old Russell Pine Cone, 20 years old Vera Tulip, 19 years old Raleigh Pine Cone, and 17 years old List Tulip. New Year's Day, everyone was 1 year older. Russell's daughter was List's only junior. Aunt, uncle, List greets you and wishes you a happy New Year's Day. List stepped forward to greet them. Regarding these two relatives, the memory of his predecessor was not deep. Since Melissa's death, Lee Williams' contact with Red Crab Island had become less and less. Therefore, the three siblings at most came to visit Marquis Merlin and rarely visited his aunt. Happy New Year's Day, List. You have grown so big, you are really tall. Melinda was a slightly plump noblewoman. Unfortunately, she did not inherit the Taro family's good looks. Moreover, it seemed that their luck was not good. Like Melissa, the two sisters were married to viscounts. But Lee William was promoted to count early, while Roland Pine Cone was still a viscount. Even in the impression of his predecessor, his aunt's two sons were more useless than him. He quietly cast magic eyes. Chapter 257. His two sons were good for nothings. Viscount Roland, who had the appearance of a middle-aged uncle, was also not a genius. As a follower of Marquis Merlin and married the daughter of Marquis Merlin, it was reasonable to say that he could enjoy a lot of resources. However, after so many years he was still just an elite Earth Knight. He had no hope of being promoted to Count. Just as Non-Dragon Knight could not be conferred the title of Grand Duke, Non-Dragon Sky Knight could not be conferred the title of Count. In other words, if the Count's descendants did not have a Sky Knight, they could still inherit the title of Count. However, if they could not produce a Sky Knight after 3 generations, then regrettably, they would have to be demoted. In fact, there was a rule that non-Earth Knight could not be conferred the title of Baron. According to this rule, after List came of age because he had not promoted to an Earth Knight, he could not obtain the title of Baron. However, because Earth Knights had long been common, as long as they had enough nutrition, very few people could not promote to an Earth Knight. This rule was not written into the enfeoffment system of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, and the aristocrats did not care about this rule. No one dared to say a word against the Count's conferment system of List. List, why didn't your father come? Viscount Roland suddenly asked. This question was very bad. Lee William had already married another wife, so Marquis Merlin was no longer his father-in-law. How could he come to celebrate the festival? List just replied with a smile. Sir Father is staying on Coral Island. There are a lot of things in the territory that he needs to deal with, so he really can't leave. Viscount Roland still wanted to ask something. Aunt Melinda interrupted him. Your two cousins often talk about you. When you were young, you often played together. Now that you have grown up, you see each other less. List, how did you grow? You are taller than Levis, your body is very sturdy, and you are already an Earth Knight? Not bad. Cousin Russell enviously hammered List's chest. His build was similar to his aunt's. He was a little short and stout, and his personality was probably that of a naive one. His iron-like accent was not standard, and it sounded like a dialect. List liked to deal with people with simple personalities. Without waiting for him to speak, Russell continued, Come, let me introduce you. This is my wife, Jackie Broccoli. Her uncle is the Count of Schalke. This is our daughter, Roche. She is just 2 years old. Jackie Broccoli? Uncle Schalke Broccoli? List smiled and greeted the gentle noblewoman before enthusiastically hugging Luo, she who was like a little cotton ball. Hi Luo, she say. Uncle List, Happy New Year's Day. Luo, she obviously did not have this thought. He directly pouted and opened his mouth to cry. List was so frightened that he quickly stuffed Rosie back into the hands of the servant who was holding her. Olvera laughed and said, "You need to understand that being handsome is of no use to children." Marquis Merlin's descendants had all arrived. At the luncheon, the old master of the Longtaro castle happily drank a few cups of wine. He did not know whether it was because he drank too much or because he was already prepared, but starting from Meopel, he called his grandchildren one by one into the study. The youngest, Liszt, was naturally the last to enter. "Grandfather," said. His clear enunciation and turbid and sharp eyes proved that Marquis Merlin did not drink too much. The old butler brought in 2 cups of coffee and closed the door of the study. "You gave me a big surprise, Liszt." Marquis Merlin's words startled Liszt. "The last time you came, you were just an ordinary Earth Knight. But now you are already an elite Earth Knight. Such rapid progress is very rare." Without denying it, Liszt curiously asked, "Grandfather, how did you see that?" "When grandfather was young, relying on a knight sword, I even defeated a Grand Duke. It is not surprising that I can see through your chi level." Marquis Merlin's voice was not loud, but his words were full of aggressiveness. He even dared to casually say that he had defeated a Grand Duke. "Speaking of which, I also find it very strange. After moving to a rural town, the food I ate was not as good as the food I ate in Tulip Castle, yet my whole person seemed to be suddenly enlightened. Almost as soon as I arrived in Flower Town, I broke through to the Earth Knight realm. A while ago, I felt that I touched the chi bottleneck and began to take potions. Of course, the smoke mission could not be disclosed, so Liszt had to make up a story. It was not a story. From an Earth Knight to an elite Earth Knight, his accumulation was indeed very natural. When he first learned of it, even he himself was startled. What should have been 3 to 5 years of painstaking effort was shortened to 3 to 5 months. It is probably because you lived in Tulip Castle and were depressed. Don't those wizards like to talk about the theory of the mutual transformation of spirit and matter? A person's spirit power can indeed affect their body. Melissa died too early, and your father did not take up the responsibility of taking care of you, which really wasted your talent." Saying that, Marquis Merlin bluntly flattered himself, "Lee William's talent is very strong and Longtaro Castle's bloodline is even more noble. You 3 siblings have inherited the advantages of your parents. You have inherited the most, so your talent is the most outstanding. In you, I seem to see a shadow of my youth." Liszt maintained his smile. After boasting for a while, Marquis Merlin asked, "Can the wealth of Flower Town support you with enough potions?" "At present, there are 3 kinds of potions growing in Flower Town. Although the output is not high, but I have not yet reached the point where I need to use a lot of potions. It is barely enough. You have a potion-producing sprite. Nurturing it will be of great help to you. You also have an intermediate-level World of Warcraft. That flying dust dog can be nurtured vigorously. It will become your good companion." "I think so too. Being promoted to an elite Earth Knight in a short time, there is nothing wrong with being a bit cautious, but there is no need to be too humble. Strength decides everything. Don't forget that you have the support of the Tulip family and the Taro family. You should let everyone see your vast future. The reason why I married Melissa to your father was because he was once fearless. Back then, when he was still an elite Viscount Earth Knight Lee William, it would have been very difficult to marry the Marquis daughter without a bit of courage." Liszt was somewhat moved. His performance was indeed somewhat low-key. He did not have the chinibu or hot-bloodedness of youngsters. However, this thought only flashed by. The reason why he was low-key was not because he lacked strength, but because he had too many secrets. He liked to develop step by step and did not like to take risks. "Grandfather, I have a clear idea of the future. I know what I should do." Marquis Merlin looked at Liszt with some surprise. He nodded and said, "Very good. It is very rare for a youngster to have such a mentality. I am even more optimistic about your future." He picked up a thin booklet from the table and threw it to Liszt. "I believe that your future achievements will surpass your father's. These are some of the insights I've gained from practicing Qi over the years. You can take them for reference." Chapter 258. The value of Merlin Longtaro's Qi cultivation comprehension was so high that it could at least be regarded as a family heirloom. After all, Marquis Merlin, in his prime, was a Sky Knight of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, known as the Windcutter Swordsman. Sky Knight was a level of Qi cultivation. Sacred Swordsman was the title of a powerful Sky Knight. Not every Sky Knight could obtain the title of Sacred Swordsman. For example, Liszt's uncle Masilo was just a Sky Knight. No one would call him Sacred Swordsman. Only a Sky Knight who performed outstandingly in a sword fight would be crowned with the title of Sacred Swordsman. "Thank you, grandfather." Liszt happily accepted Marquis Merlin's handwritten letter. His father was the Sea Wave Swordsman, so he could ask about his cultivation comprehension at any time. Now that he had obtained the cultivation comprehension of the Windcutter Swordsman, he was not afraid that he would not have any experience to draw on after advancing to a Sky Knight. The only regret was that his chi was of the fire attribute, the Count was of the water attribute, and Marquis Merlin was of the wind attribute. An individual's chi attribute was related to their bloodline and physique. Liszt's elder brother and sister were of the water attribute, while his grandfather, uncle and cousin were of the wind attribute. Although it was a bit unexpected for him to be of the fire attribute, but it was also normal. It was just that neither family had produced a sacred swordsman of the fire attribute, so they were slightly lacking in terms of cultivation experience. If you feel constrained in the Flower Town, then the gate of the Red Crab Island will always be open for you, said Marquis Merlin calmly. Liszt nodded solemnly. Thank you, grandfather, for thinking highly of me. Marquis Merlin and his grandson glanced at each other, already understanding his intentions. If one day the Taro family's rule over the Red Crab Island is shaken, then I hope that you and your sister can lend a helping hand to Miopal. My greatest disappointment in your uncle was not that he was a waste of talent, but that he had few heirs, far worse than your father. Masilo had only one son. The Count had 2 wives, 3 men and 1 woman and 4 children. Liszt did not know whether he had lovers or illegitimate children outside. However, his fertility was far superior to Masilo's. After leaving the study, Liszt did not return to the living room to chat with his relatives. Although he had already accepted his identity, he still preferred a relatively quiet environment. Moreover, he had the Sword Saint's letter in his hands. It would be uncomfortable if he didn't take a look at it. There was no name on the letter, and it was completely handwritten. The handwriting was sloppy, and there were many traces of alteration. It was easy to imagine that Marquis Merlin had written this recently. He had probably begun to sum up his life after he left his position as the captain of the court fleet. A 12-year-old Earth Knight, a 15-year-old Elite Earth Knight, and a 22-year-old Sky Knight. In the Sword Saint's letter, Marquis Merlin first recalled his own cultivation experience. This magnificent experience could be said to be a genius among geniuses. Compared to the 25-year-old Sky Knight Lee William Tulip, he was even more outstanding. However, Marquis Merlin was born in a Marquis family and had accumulated resources since he was young. Compared to Lee William, who was born in a Viscount family, he might not necessarily be more talented. There were 3 levels of Sky Knight. The ordinary level Sky Knight, the Sword Saint level Sky Knight, and the so-called Dragon Knight Reserve, the perfect level Sky Knight who could ride a dragon at any time. At the age of 39, Marquis Merlin was already a perfect level Sky Knight. Unfortunately, I don't have a dragon and I can't find a dragon to ride. I have no hope of becoming a Dragon Knight in this life. In the letter, there was not much regret in Marquis Merlin's words, because he could at least laugh at the Sapphire Grand Duke. But the Grand Duke has the Sapphire Dragon and I can't ride it either. Without the dragon's approval, it's useless even if I have perfect fighting power. Although he couldn't ride a dragon, he still had some imagination about the Dragon Knight. It is said that the perfect level of high-level fighting power is the end of fighting power. Only by combining with the mysterious power of the dragon can an incredible dragon fighting power be produced. A kind of fighting power that transcends the limits of magic power and has infinite possibilities. Unfortunately, the Grand Duke is too stingy and refused my request to read Grand Duke Anderson's Dragon Knight Fighting Power book countless times. Dragon Knight Fighting Power book? Liszt's heart was in turmoil. He couldn't wait to snatch this secret book, to see what a Dragon Knight was and what a dragon fighting power was. The current Grand Duke Andrew Sapphire should be a perfect level Sky Knight and couldn't ride a dragon. But he had the first Grand Duke's Dragon Knight Fighting Power book, and was probably the only person in the entire Grand Duchy of Sapphire who knew how to ride a dragon. Liszt felt that it was necessary to have a good discussion with him about the knowledge of dragon riding in the future. He shook his head and threw away many distracting thoughts. He began to look at Marquis Merlin's real insights on fighting power training. The Trainee Knight stage was only skimmed over, and the Elite Earth Knight stage was not much redundant. The experience provided by the Count was much different. It was just taking potions, and at most providing some reasonable experience of taking potions. The real detailed description was the Sky Knight's fighting power training. But Liszt stopped reading in time. I need to focus on the Elite Earth Knight now. Don't be too ambitious. Lay a solid foundation first. After putting the Sword Saint's handwritten book into the gem space, He left the room and returned to the living room where they were still chatting. List, what gift did Grandpa give you? After Cousin Raleigh saw List, he immediately shouted. Compared to the naive Russell, Raleigh was more jumpy. What gift did you get? Grandpa gave me a piece of gemstone equipment. Raleigh took out a pendant from his bosom. The pendant was inlaid with a yellow gemstone. This is a yellow gemstone dragon's topaz. It can make my fighting power more solid. The elite Earth Knight can't break through my solid fighting power. Envy? As long as it was a piece of gemstone equipment, it was worthy of envy. List flattered at just the right time. I'm really envious, a piece of gemstone equipment, it's so beautiful. Raleigh immediately smiled from ear to ear. A piece of gemstone equipment, whether it was a weapon or an accessory, was worth more than 1,000 gold coins. As the second son, he didn't have a title to inherit. 1,000 gold coins was simply a fortune from heaven. List asked everyone about their gains. He unexpectedly discovered that Marquis Merlin had given 3 Sword Saints handwritten books to Meople, Levis, and himself. Russell, Raleigh, and Olvera each had a piece of gemstone equipment. Levis said with a smile, even your one and all 3 handwritten books were personally written by Grandpa. The contents are also the same. Of course, the typos are different. In fact, Grandpa only needed to write 1 book. You can copy the rest, Raleigh proudly said. In his opinion, the value of a piece of gemstone equipment was far greater than a handwritten book that could be borrowed and copied. Raleigh, don't talk nonsense. Aunt Melinda stopped Raleigh. The smile on her face was a bit unnatural. Viscount Roland held his cup and took a sip to conceal it. Chapter 259. Originally, he thought that it would just be a big family dinner to end this uninteresting New Year festival and get a reward. But in the evening, it ushered in a pleasant surprise. Marquis Merlin, long time no see. The speaker was a middle-aged man in a gorgeous magic cloak, wearing 3 gemstone rings of different colors on his hand. They were light yellow, light red, and blue. Mr. Grimaldi, why didn't you stay in the palace? Why did you come here? Marquis Merlin was a little surprised by the arrival of the other party. I came with the blessing of the Grand Duke. The Grand Duke has troubled himself. Let's begin, Mr. Grimaldi. Grimaldi smiled slightly and raised his hand with 3 rings high. The next moment, the brilliance on the rings reflected each other and turned into several beams of light that shot straight into the dark night sky. These beams of light were magic, and they suddenly exploded in the air 100 meters high. Boom. The red beam burned a large area of flames, like a cloud of fire. Boom. The blue beam set off a mass of water, rolling like waves in the sky. Boom. The purple beam bloomed with lightning, interspersed between the flames and the water mass, making a loud thunder. Boom. The cyan beam finally exploded and turned into a huge gust of wind, stirring the flames, water, and lightning into a mass, constantly changing various shapes over the Longtaro Castle. This magical picture made all the people in the Longtaro Castle look up at the sky and enjoy the magic wonders. Even the distant cities could see the magical spectacle above the Longtaro Castle, and they clicked their tongues in amazement. About a quarter of an hour. The magic wonders gradually dissipated, a few drops of rain fell, and everything was calm again. Marquis Merlin, I have brought the Grand Duke's blessing. Mr. Grimaldi bowed slightly and said calmly. Marquis Merlin returned the salute and said with a sigh, although it's just a flashy magic show, I have received the Grand Duke's kindness. Thank you, Mr. Grimaldi, for your hard work. Please share the New Year's dinner with me. It's not an honor. Accompanied by Marquis Merlin, Grimaldi nodded to Messiro and others and entered the Longtaro Castle. On the other side, Liszt had already inquired about the identity of the other party. Meople explained in detail, Grimandan Truth, a great wizard consecrated by the court. He is proficient in the 6 elements of wind, water, fire, earth, lightning, and ice magic, but he is most formidable in researching and designing magic equipment, especially magic rings. The 3 rings he's wearing? Liszt asked again. He remembered that he had cheated Curtis Truth's phylactery, which was a sapphire ring. He did not find anything special about it. The shape is very similar to the ring of magic on Grimandan's hand. Perhaps it was a magic ring. Meople nodded. That's right, they are definitely 3 magic rings. It was a piece of equipment that used the power of the dragon gem to increase the power of a magician's magic. Because the engraving of magic runes is different, it's not very useful to us knights, but it's a priceless treasure to mages. Hearing was of no use to the knight. Liszt could not help but be a little disappointed. It seemed that the magic runes on Curtis' phylactery and the sapphire ring were also specially engraved for mages. He could not use them and could only collect them as souvenirs. Suddenly an idea flashed. It would be better to simply take out the sapphire on the sapphire ring, scrape off the magic runes, re-engrave them, and let someone make a gemstone weapon? I already have a suitable red blood sword, and it would be best to make a gemstone spear suitable for charging. He even thought of a name. It would be called the blue blood spear, matching the red blood sword. As for the phylactery function of the sapphire ring, Curtis' soul was obliterated with the collapse of the ghost ship, so of course, it was not needed. However, if this sapphire ring is exposed now, won't people think of something? Besides, can the gems that have already been used be recycled? It was unknown. He just had an idea. Soon he returned to the dining room and started the New Year's Day dinner. On the dining table, rich high-end food, luxury crystal tableware, and old cellar wine, all show the wealth of the Taro family. Great Mage Grimaldi and Marquis Merlin talked and laughed, from time to time talking about a few palace secrets that were not very private. The young people also toasted each other and wished each other well in the new year. The servants kept coming in and out, taking away the plates that were replaced after only 2 bites, and bringing in a variety of new dark dishes. 2-year-old Luoshi somehow became noisy, his little hands clapping randomly, directly knocking the crystal tableware on the table down, falling to the ground and breaking. The servants of the Longtaro castle cleaned up the damaged tableware with a smile, and the people at the table did not care. Even after a year, List still did not develop a taste for dark cuisine, so he ate very politely. He even sighed in his heart when he was bored. Wine and meat stink at the door of the Zhu family, but there are frozen bones on the road. The luxury of the Longtaro castle, even the crystal tableware can be broken at will. The price of a crystal tableware may be enough for a civilian to eat black bread for a year. The backward level of productivity makes it difficult for civilians to eat and wear warm clothes. Even the serfs of the Longtaro castle, with countless elves assisting in agriculture, will still struggle to survive. Although the yield in the fields will be high, it also means heavy taxes after all to maintain the life of the Longtaro castle. Food, use, clothing, and the equipment of the armed knight, all output comes from the farming of civilians. What are you thinking about, distracted? Olvera sat next to List, leaned over and whispered, "Are you thinking about your subordinates, such as a female attendant dressed as a mercenary with a face scarf?" After coming to Red Crab Island and recovering from the trauma of the ghost ship, Olvera became interested in Paris again, and found a lot of female mercenaries to contact. Like recruiting female mercenaries, List did not interfere in this. He lost if he could win them over. Hearing this, he elegantly cut the World of Warcraft barbecue and casually replied, "No, I am thinking about world peace." Ah. Olvera laughed. "List, I never found you to be so humorous." List also laughed. He had the self-deprecating feeling of, others laugh at me for being too crazy, I laugh at others for not seeing through me. We should do something meaningful in life, and the desire for world peace is very meaningful. Of course, we need to understand that it is best to set a small goal that we can achieve first. What is your small goal? For example, I want to ride a dragon first. Haha. Olvera laughed. On the other side, Cousin Russell also laughed. Yes, I also want to set a small goal, I also want to ride a dragon. Chapter 260. Dang dang dang. At midnight in the Longtaro castle, it was announced that January 1st, 152 of the Sapphire calendar had officially passed. Lying in bed, List called out the smoke mission with anticipation. After the new year, the mission was completed. Mission completed. Reward, Spirit of the Sea, Singing Demon. List's sleepiness completely disappeared, leaving only the excitement that had not yet erupted. Spirit of the Sea? Singing Demon? Isn't this a legendary creature? Singing Demon, a legendary creature in the sea, is second only to mermaids in night novels. According to the description of most night novels, singing demons are good creatures, with the upper body of a woman and the lower body of a sea snake. In a small number of night novels, singing demons are evil creatures seducing sailors at sea and killing them. It is different from the mermaids, the representative of the sea romance in night novels. It is also different from the evil devils in the sea in folklore, Naga, or in some magic books, the fusion creatures created by the ancient magicians, Murlocs. Singing demons have a wide market among sailors. Many sailors swore that they had heard an illusory song on the sea during a certain voyage, and that the song had intoxicated them. Many sailors even said that their ships were lost at sea and relied on the singing demon's song to find the right direction. List has no doubt about the authenticity of the singing demon. The ghost ship has appeared. What's the fuss about the singing demon? Even if it's creatures such as mermaids, nagas and murlocs, he doesn't doubt the authenticity. On the contrary, he was very excited. Most of the singing demons in night novels have a beautiful female human upper body and a pleasant singing voice. The smoke mission also called the singing demon the spirit of the sea. Obviously, the real singing demon is a good creature and has extraordinary power. A singing demon? Will I be rewarded with a singing demon? I don't know what the singing demon looks like. How beautiful? Will it have the same reproductive organs as a human? He touched his chin, his expression a little wretched. Because he thought for a while he couldn't figure out what kind of strange shape it would be. I'm afraid it doesn't have a normal human structure. After all, the lower body is the body of a sea snake. Maybe it will have the same structure as a dolphin? He had seen the news before and heard the story of humans and dolphins. It is said that dolphins are one of the few animals that, like humans, do it for love. Stop. List stops his wretched imagination. He is more willing to believe that singing demons have no gender. The smoke mission described it as an elf of the sea. The elf was a creature without gender. He sorted out his chaotic thoughts. List summoned the smoke mission again. He hadn't seen what the new mission was yet. Mission. At the beginning of the new year, the flower town is still covered in ice and snow, but a new life is already being born. The female flying dust dog is about to give birth. For the sake of powerful fighting strength in the future, please feed the flying dust dog pups the flower town's specialty milk until they open their eyes. Reward: mutated flying dust dog. Mutated flying dust dog? List's mind returned to normal. Feed it with the milk of a dragon cow until it opens its eyes? Does this mean that as long as I feed them with the milk of dragon cows, I can make the offspring of Dosen and Stupid Woman complete the mutation? He might even become an intermediate World of Warcraft player like Dosen? He has high hopes for the offspring of Stupid Woman. Now it seems that there is a high probability that these flying dust dog pups will become intermediate World of Warcraft players. Think about the future intermediate World of Warcraft flying dust dog army. With such a luxurious lineup, even if the Sapphire Grand Duke's blue blood orders of chivalry came, wouldn't they all be pierced by rockthorns? Thinking of this, he couldn't wait to return to Flower Town immediately to take care of the flying dust dog pups that were about to be born. But not yet. There was a social ball to attend the day after tomorrow. This was appointed by Marquis Merlin to find a suitable marriage partner for the three siblings and cousin Raleigh. Marquis Merlin was old and probably bored, so he began to do the work of a matchmaker. Levis didn't care. He was still pursuing Marquis Roderick's daughter. Elvira was full of expectations and Raleigh was even more impatient. Before List updated the mission, he was also looking forward to it. He wanted to see Athena Salmon again. The first girl in the world to express her love for him left a deep impression on him. But now he just wanted to get through these 2 days quickly and go home. I miss my singing demon. Paris, how many egg rolls did you bring? Why haven't you finished them after eating for so many days? After practicing Qi in the garden downstairs, List met Paris, who was bored and wandering around. This black dragon gang was supposed to protect him. In fact, in Longtaro Castle she had nothing to do at all. She just wandered around all day. Or she was forcibly dragged by Elvira to learn from each other and connect with each other. There's not much left. Fortunately, I can go back tomorrow. If I stay in Longtaro Castle, I will starve to death. Are you sure you mean starve to death? List's eyes swept over her body and felt that she was more plump than before. A tactful suggestion. Eat less snacks as much as possible. It will make you fat and affect your strength. Being looked at by List like this, Paris suddenly felt a little hot on her face. Her eyes were a little evasive, and her tone became a lot softer. Lord Baron, do you like thinner girls? List said in his heart, troublesome. So he sternly said, no, I only like myself. After that, he pulled the laugh-pleated collar on his neck, took 2 long legs and turned around to enter Longtaro Castle. Only Paris was left with her mouth open, not knowing what to say. The ball began at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was not yet time. There were many carriages parked at the door. Young aristocrats had already arrived at Longtaro Castle. Men and women were dressed in gorgeous dresses, like peacocks fluttering. List was also refreshed. The fully formed frac habillure perfectly accentuated his temperament. The fabric of the clothes was red, embroidered with the pale golden Longtaro logo of Longtaro Castle. This was a tradition of the aristocracy. They would usually embroider their family's logo on their clothes as decoration. The clothes were from Longtaro Castle, so naturally they were embroidered with the Longtaro logo. On the whole, it looked very noble. The gorgeous dress matched with a tall stature, coupled with a mature and steady temperament and a handsome face. Wherever he stood, he was the invisible focus. Just like now. He stood by the window in the corridor. From far away, a servant came over with a drink. "Young Master List, would you like some?" "Thank you." List picked up a glass of champagne. Champagne was a kind of wine. People loved to drink champagne during festivals. However, real champagne was hard to buy. According to the laws of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, only champagne brewed on Blue Dragon Island was real champagne. Others could only be called wine. The production of champagne on Blue Dragon Island was very low, and it was only supplied to aristocrats above the count rank. Whether it was delicious or not, List did not know. He did not like to drink. Chapter 261. When the carriage stopped, a servant helped down an aristocratic young lady in a gorgeous dress. She wore a flying bird hat that many young ladies like to wear, with a colorful bird feather standing tall, very eye-catching. Once the standard hat of Madame Sky Knight, it had now become the favorite of ordinary aristocrats. However, List did not know this aristocratic young lady. "List, why are you hiding here? I have been looking for you for a long time." Cousin Meople's voice came from behind him. "What are you looking at by the window?" He went straight to List's side and looked outside, just enough to have a panoramic view of the carriage in front of the Longtaro Castle's entrance. "Oh, you shouldn't be inquiring in advance about which beautiful young lady is worthy of making a move, right? Well, from this point of view, indeed, the height is very clear." The height he was talking about was the height of a ridge and a peak. "No, I just feel that the hall is too stuffy." "I see. What do you see?" Meople touched the red wine glass in his hand with List's champagne glass. "You are looking forward to the beautiful salmon family Athena." "No." List replied insincerely and then suddenly asked, "Will she also come this time? Didn't you say that you are not looking forward to it?" "List, you rejected Athena at the beginning, so why are you concerned about her now?" List did not mince his words and directly said, "Perhaps it is very memorable. On the Coral Island, I rarely participate in this kind of ball, and no female aristocrat of the same age has ever invited me to her home as a guest. At the ball on the Red Crab Island, Athena was the first to see that I am so outstanding." "No wonder." As if a certain nerve had been touched. Meople didn't know what to think, but he did not continue to tease List. Instead, he sighed with melancholy. A man should find a woman who understands him. If he doesn't understand himself, then I don't dare to imagine how chaotic his life will be in the future. List probingly asked, "Are you talking about Princess Angela?" "Yes, Angela Sapphire, the brightest pearl on the crown of the Grand Duchess. If nothing goes wrong, she will be the future mistress of Red Crab Island." Grand Duke Andrew had 2 sons and 2 daughters. Angela was the youngest daughter. "Are you sure about your relationship with her?" "It's not me and her. It's grandfather and the Grand Duke who confirmed our relationship." He downed the red wine in the glass in one gulp and threw the glass back to the plate the servant was holding. He shouted, "Leave." The servant hurriedly bowed and left. Meople propped his hands on the windowsill. "Do you know why I once bitterly pursued her without getting any response, but now I can clarify our relationship?" List looked at him and waited for him to continue. "Grimand, in truth, I naively thought that he really came with the Grand Duke's blessing, but it turned out." He suddenly turned around and patted List on the shoulder. "Grandfather said that your future is limitless. We have the same blood in our veins. I have nothing to hide from you. Please speak, cousin." List had a rough guess. Sure enough, the content of Meople's words was similar to what he had guessed. He had become the receiver. Of course, Princess Angela certainly would not bring her child. Even if she was the Grand Duke's most beloved daughter, she could not bring her child and marry the heir of a marquis. This was not only a violation of the morality of the knight system, but also a great humiliation to the marquis family. Therefore, Princess Angela, who had been pregnant for several months, was forced to abort her child. Her reputation was very bad. I already knew that as long as she did not cause too much of a scandal, let bygones be bygones. But what was unforgivable was that the aborted child, his father, turned out to be a juggler. Since her reputation was bad, it would not be strange for the child's father to be someone else. But as an aristocrat, the natural ruling class, List could understand Meople's feelings. Aristocrats could mess around with other aristocrats, but they absolutely could not mess around with commoners, especially a noble aristocrat like the daughter of a duke. Jugglers had the same status as serfs, so it was no wonder that Meople was furious. Swirling the champagne, List carefully sized up Meople and suddenly thought of something. Perhaps Meople wasn't angry because the princess and the juggler were messing around, but rather because the news had leaked out, causing him to be so angry. To be able to clearly inform the Taro family that the princess and the juggler had killed someone showed that this matter was no longer a secret on the Blue Dragon Island. Perhaps in Meople's eyes at this moment, the Long Taro castle has turned green, lush green. Suppressing the urge to gloat over his misfortune. He thought about it. He decided to comfort Meople. Life is not always smooth sailing. Although Princess Angela does not meet the moral standards of an aristocratic mistress, she is at least the mistress that Long Taro Castle needs the most. Compared to the harmony of married life, those things before marriage are nothing. Speaking up to this point, List suddenly thought of his previous views on love. In his youth he looked forward to leaving his first time to a girl. In his youth he thought that it didn't matter if his first time was there or not. In his youth he felt that the past was not important, and in his prime he thought that the important thing was to love each other. When he was approaching his 30s and still could not find a partner, he always thought of quickly finding someone to make do with. The struggle between people in life was always that if you took a step back, life would take a step forward. Perhaps he was just grumbling. Meople quickly extricated himself from the anger of the receiver. In any case, he was already prepared to be the receiver. Come, let's go to the hall and chat. Today all the young aristocrats of Red Crab Island have come. Maybe you can find someone to your liking. Then he remembered, I was too busy talking about my own matters and forgot to tell you that you don't need to look forward to Athena. She will not be attending this ball. At the ball of the Cut from the Sea festival, she fell in love with a baron. She will probably become the baron's wife next year. Is that so? List responded indifferently as if he did not care. In fact, his heart suddenly tightened, and there was an unspeakable discomfort. The gloating that he had been trying to suppress and ridicule Meople burst like a balloon. Meople being forced to take over was certainly ridiculous, but how could his narcissism not be ridiculous? I took it for granted. Between aristocrats, how could there be love at first sight? Not to mention that it was just a hurried meeting at the ball. Maybe after the ball she would forget about me. Suddenly, his interest waned. The original ball, along with the anticipation of Athena, could slightly arouse his passion. But now he thought of the so-called ball, which was nothing more than a union of interest between aristocrats. Each would show their capital, and then each would choose a high-quality partner to continue the family's reproduction. Chapter 262. Sure enough, there was no Athena Salmon at the ball. Levis and Elvira blended into the crowd, enthusiastically chatting with the men and women of the aristocratic society. Meople still had a smile on his face, trying his best to maintain the dignity of the master of Long Taro Castle. He was very good at this kind of work. List was still the same, neither taking the initiative nor refusing. When someone came to be polite with him, he would accompany them in chatting. Although he had never thought of coming to Red Crab Island to work hard, if he could broaden his contacts, why should he refuse? The pianist played a beautiful melody. One by one, men and women danced gracefully on the dance floor. Laughter constantly rang out from every corner, obviously coming from people having a pleasant conversation. Meople turned around, taking care of all the aristocratic men and women. Then, holding a glass of wine, he sat down next to List's seat. More tiring than fighting a charge. He took a deep breath. Fortunately, I am just Baron and do not have to say a word to each of the hundreds of men and women. They are all followers of the Long Taro Castle. They came from afar hoping to say a word to me. How could I bear to let them down? It was unclear whether his words were self-deprecating or complacent. He suddenly asked, "Are you not going to dance? Those who invite me are not my interest." Then take the initiative to invite them. This is the initiative that a gentleman aristocrat should have. I have not decided who to invite for the time being. Your way of thinking is really strange. If it were me, as long as they are beautiful, I would invite them all, not just one dance. If I met a suitable one, I would find a corner to have a heart-to-heart talk, and it would not be a wasted trip. If I could get along, maybe I could even take her home and be the hostess. List was still reserved. Too fast is not good. Meople shook his head. He could not understand his cousin. Since you do not want to dance, can you play the piano? Probably, a little. Liszt himself did not know how to play any musical instrument, but his predecessor, as an aristocratic member, had learned the piano. He could barely remember a few songs. Nobles loved music, and the piano was the most popular instrument, especially at a ball. Without the accompaniment of a piano, how could a charming atmosphere be created? Many down-and-out nobles relied on playing the piano to maintain their upper-class lifestyle, and some even became the guests of noble ladies. Get ready, we'll each play a song later. Miopal beckoned a manservant. Go inform the pianist to quickly come down after this song. I and Liszt will go up and play the piano. Yes, young master. Have you decided what song to play? I'm going to play Ukulele by the Waterside. This is my favorite piano piece. It has a beautiful melody and a touching story. Do you like it? I don't want to play the piano, and I've never heard of this song. Oh my God, you haven't heard of it? This is the work of the great pianist Czerny Windmill. He composed this piece based on his own experiences. Ukulele, the legendary Gorgon. When Master Czerny was traveling in the Blast Furnace Kingdom, he met Ukulele's eyes. At that moment he turned into stone. Turned into stone? Then is he dead? You really don't have any artistic atmosphere. This is a figure of speech. Czerny didn't really turn into stone, but he saw Ukulele's beauty. It was her beauty that turned him into stone, and not her eyes that really turned him into stone. What he saw might not have been Ukulele. It's just a figure of speech. When Miopal talked about the piano piece, he beamed with joy. Ukulele is a legendary creature that doesn't exist. Legend has it that she had 3 sisters, all of whom were snake-haired, beautiful but deadly succubi. When Master Czerny saw a woman by the waterside, he felt that her beauty was like a poison that turned him into stone. Do you understand? More or less, I understand. Liszt casually replied. Then get ready, you'll also go up and play a song. Only art can make people forget their worries, believe me. He left Liszt with a very artistic view of his back and prepared to go up on stage to play. Seemingly frightened by Liszt's ignorance, Miopal deliberately used chi to amplify his volume. As he played, he deliberately used his impetus to amplify his volume. He first told them the background story of Ukulele by the waterside before he began to play. It had to be said that his piano playing skills were superb. The melody was at times soothing and at times impassioned. It really made people intoxicated with the scene of, I saw Ukulele, I turned into stone, her beauty took my breath away. The song ended. The aristocrats, who were immersed in the music, applauded one after another. Miopal gracefully got up and slightly bowed to express his thanks. Next, my cousin Liszt Tulip will play a piano piece for everyone. Liszt really wanted to take a hammer and smash Miopal's head to pieces. He didn't want to play any piano pieces. Indeed, almost all aristocrats would learn to play instruments like the piano in order to increase their noble temperament. The previous Liszt had played the piano a lot, but the current Liszt was a musical idiot, and what he liked the most were pop songs. He had never touched any musical instrument since his transmigration. The piano fingering from his predecessor's memory was already rusty. Letting him go up and play was a disgraceful scene. He didn't know whether this was Miopal's revenge or not. It was very likely that he had already exposed his schadenfreude during the chat in front of the window. After all, at that time he really wanted to laugh. But at this moment he didn't feel embarrassed or anything. His current state of mind was detached from worldly affairs. He didn't intend to gain any love at this ball. Therefore, if he went up and lost face, then so be it. After adjusting his state of mind, Liszt walked up the stage with a smile on his face. Sitting in front of the piano, he used his hand to run across the keys, producing very orderly high and low notes. He lowered his head and glanced at the keys. Comparing them with the memories of his predecessor, he found the corresponding keys for the phonetic symbols duo, li, mi, fa, sua, la, shi, and so on. Then, the melody of a song appeared in his mind, and he quickly figured out how to play it. Like Miopal, he was also preparing a prelude monologue. Circulating chi, he increased the volume of his voice. This is a very ancient legend. A very, very long time ago, in the forest kingdom of a distant continent, there was a pair of brother and sister. They each had their own special abilities. The elder brother's eyes could see very far away places, while the younger sister's ears could hear very far away sounds. They grew up together, experiencing happiness and sorrow together. Liszt's voice was very magnetic. When he read out his monologue, there wasn't any abrupt feeling. On the contrary, It made it very easy for people to sink into his story. In their leisure time they would always run to the mountains. The elder brother surveyed the distant country and told the younger sister about all kinds of strange things. The younger sister listened to the messages transmitted by the wind and sang the sounds of nature to the elder brother. They fell in the river of love. They cast aside all restraints and enjoyed their love. But the secular world would never allow this love. No matter how hard they tried, they were still defeated by the shackles of morality. In order to prove their undying love, the elder brother blinded his eyes and the younger sister plugged her ears. They couldn't obtain the blessings of the masses, so what was the use of this ability? A very, very long time later, a foreign musician heard this poignant and moving love story and was greatly moved. All sorts of feelings welled up in his heart, and he composed a song that moved the heart. When I heard this song by chance, I couldn't help but feel sorrow. How could the bitter experience of the brother and sister not make one sigh with regret? Unfortunately, I didn't memorize the entire song, nor did I memorize the entire song. I could only share the melody and song that I remembered with everyone. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Liszt's hands stroked the piano and heavily pressed down on the keys, beginning to play the song. Chapter 263. Fine. In fact, Liszt did not play Two Tigers, nor did he sing Run Fast. In fact, what he played was the piano piece he was most familiar with, Beethoven's Die Liebe piano piece. As for why he knew how to play this song, it was naturally because it was very simple and he was very familiar with it. When he was a child he had a music box. Every time he turned it, Die Liebe would jingle. Even now, when he closed his eyes, he could still hear the familiar melody that made him want to vomit. As one of the world's greatest piano composers, the story of Beethoven's deafness was written in primary school textbooks. But few people knew that Beethoven was unmarried. He yearned for love. At the age of 16 he was captivated by an aristocratic lady, but because of the difference in status, they were separated and almost committed suicide. At the age of 20 he fell in love with a widow, but because of the disparity in status, he missed the opportunity. His deafness from childhood tormented him, but he still yearned for love. At the age of 40 he fell in love with his female student, a young girl named Teresa Malfatti. Impulsively he wrote a ditty called Bagatelle in A minor, and gave it to Teresa. Later, when someone wrote a biography of Beethoven, this ditty was found among Teresa's belongings. But when it was published, the original title was changed from Die Liebe to Die Liebe. Since then this piano ditty began to spread widely in the world. Because of its simple monosyllabic melody, Die Liebe almost monopolized half of the music box market. The remaining half was divided by Castle in the Sky and Cannon. When he played it for the first time, Liszt's fingers were still very jerky. There were many mistakes and it was not perfect. But when he started to play it for the second time, he had already mastered every note and restored most of Die Liebe. He played it 3 times in a row. He just finished his first piano performance in his career. Like Miopel, he stood up and bowed slightly to the aristocratic men and women on the dance floor, who had already stopped dancing and were quietly enjoying Die Liebe. When he turned away from the piano, warm applause rang out from the audience, even more than when Miopel played Euryale by the waterside. Most of the people here had heard Miopel play Euryale by the waterside. But no one had ever heard of this short and pithy lyric, Für Elise. On earth, the charm of the work was self-evident. Even though Liszt's performance was only at a beginner's level, it still moved many people. Awesome. Miopel was unable to restrain his joy as he said, Liszt, you must teach me this song, I want to learn it. No problem, I'll find some time to write it out. Liszt had no intention of keeping it to himself, but he enjoyed the applause after the performance. Not only was Miopel circling around him, but many other aristocrats also gathered around him and asked him about the piano piece, Für Elise. A male nobleman exclaimed, I've never heard of it. Although it's short, its charm is extraordinary. I also heard it by chance. An ordinary aristocratic young lady blinked her big eyes. Sir Liszt, can you teach me how to play this song? Right, it should have a name, right? Für Elise, I will sort out the score and give it to cousin Miopel. He will give you a copy. I like this piano piece. I can hear the sweetness, the melancholy of seeing through the mundane world, as well as the sorrowful love throughout the song, as well as the longing for love that will never change until death. The aristocratic young lady who spoke had her hands clasped over her heart, as if she was immersed in the sorrow of 2 tigers. No, Für Elise. Liszt regretfully expressed, "Yes, it's a very sorrowful story. I can only remember this relatively easy part of the song. I wasn't able to play the truly sorrowful part later on." In fact, he himself couldn't tell whether this piece was sorrowful or not. It was a beginner's level, for Elise. It successfully made Liszt, who wanted to keep a low profile, become the focus of the ball. Even though the pianist once again went on stage to perform at a high level, there were still a large number of aristocrats surrounding Liszt and discussing the piano. "Hey, handsome pianist, can I have a dance with you?" A tall aristocratic young lady suddenly squeezed through several other young ladies surrounding Liszt and extended her hand to Liszt. Her appearance easily made Liszt think of Elizabeth Olsen, the Red Witch from The Avengers 2. However, her hair was blonde and her pupils were dark blue. If 10 points were the full score, she would probably get a rating of 8. 5 points from Liszt, which was much higher than Athena Salmon, who got 8 points. How could I refuse Miss Dunico's invitation? Liszt grabbed her hand and followed her to the dance floor. With his arms around her waist, he slowly danced to the piano music, like a waltz in 3 slow steps. Liszt could feel that she was very close to him, as if they could connect hearts and warm each other. "I like this for Elise." "I like it too. But when you play there are some parts that aren't smooth." "Yes, I don't play the piano often and I've forgotten some of the fingering. I play the piano every day. I like music, especially this for Elise. It's a very simple monosyllabic melody, but it has a different kind of beauty. I hear the whispers of love between lovers, and I'm intoxicated by the low voice and the love." As she spoke, she put her mouth close to Liszt's ear and gently blew a gust of hot air. This action made him unconsciously respect her, but he resisted the urge to express it. Miss Dunico really understands music. Unfortunately, I can't restore the original version of For Elise, so that you can feel the sad love story told in the song. No, perhaps the incomplete is the most beautiful. It's very short, very relaxed, but it's the best piano skit. There's no need to add any more melody. Such an evaluation. Liszt could not help but look up to Miss Dunico. For Elise was an independent piano skit. Many people, after listening to his nonsense story, felt that it was a pity that they did not listen to the complete version. Only Dunico thought that the incomplete part was complete enough. This was a woman who truly understood music. Perhaps she was a socialite nurtured by a great aristocrat. Dunico Hyacinth, her father was Durante Hyacinth, one of the 2 counts of Red Crab Island. According to the information Miopel told him, the 17-year-old Dunico was known as the Red Crab Island's thorny rose. Her reputation was not very good. She was enthusiastic and proactive, but among the countless pursuers around her, none had truly won her heart. He put his arm around her slender and powerful waist. Feeling the soft but elastic sensation on his chest as well as their gazes, he suddenly felt a lot of excitement. "Actually, I just made up the story. This song is an independent piano skit. A pianist fell in love with an aristocratic lady and created it on impulse." Chapter 264. Dunico threw Liszt a coquettish look. "So, you lied to everyone. How can you say it's a lie? Every piano piece has a beautiful story behind it. Does it matter which is true and which is false? Isn't it important? The story only provides a small touch. The moving melody is what moves people the most. Is that so? Unless you make up a story more suitable for Die Elise, I won't agree with you." When it came to making up stories, Liszt was very good, but he didn't agree to Dunico's request. Perhaps he could make up a story to please the Count's daughter and develop a story with Dunico beyond the story. Maybe with his temperament and charm, it would be normal to win Dunico over. But there was no need for that. He didn't like this kind of deliberate flattery. Perhaps he loved himself more, or perhaps he was just interested in Dunico's physical beauty, and didn't think about the kind of impulse to pursue it. There's no romantic story. It's just a little song that a piano teacher fell in love with a female student. Liszt said lightly. Dunico threw him another coquettish look. "Is it as passionate as you are now?" Liszt didn't react. What? It wasn't until Dunico rubbed her thigh gently against his that he suddenly realized that his expression of respect was too obvious. He didn't have any experience in this area in both of his lives, but he didn't have the shyness of a young man. "You know, it's hard to maintain a calm state of mind when facing a beautiful lady, especially one as beautiful as you." He moved back a little to lower the temperature. Dunico took a big step forward and pressed her body closer. "I accept your compliment. No one has expressed it to me so generously. Oh. List was suddenly at a loss for words. Perhaps there was no need to say anything more. He quietly danced close to her, swaying his body gently to the rhythm of the piano. When their eyes met, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He just had to maintain a consistent smile. Duniko stopped talking and followed List's footsteps, moving gently to the rhythm. The piano piece ended. The two did not separate immediately. They continued to hug each other, waiting for the second piano piece. However, this piano piece was only halfway through when Daniko suddenly asked, "Do you want to go out for some fresh air?" "Let's go." List loosened his grip on her waist and quietly left the crowded dance floor with Dunike in his hand. The sky outside was completely dark, only the lights of the Longtaro castle were still bright. On the corridor outside the hall, servants hurried past. The two of them didn't say anything. They just held hands and walked towards a secluded corner. On the way they could see pairs of men and women hugging each other tightly in the corners of the corridor. In a corner where the light from the crystal lamp was relatively dim. They also stopped in it. The air outside is very fresh. You can breathe the cold winter air. List rested one hand on the windowsill and held Duniko's hand with the other. "Miss Duniko, you're wearing very thin clothes today. Are you cold now?" "I'm not cold. I'm a little hot." Duniko looked at him and suddenly said, "Call me Duniko." "Duniko." List looked at Dunike's long eyelashes and delicate face under light makeup. He unconsciously lowered his head. Dunike, who was about 1.7 meters tall, quietly stood on her tiptoes, raised her face and gently closed her eyes. There was no need for any unnecessary words. The next moment, List touched two pieces of softness. After a long time of suffocation they separated. A sparkling silk thread was dragged out, reflecting the light of the distant castle. Dunike held List's neck with both hands, unwilling to let go. Her eyes were burning. List hurriedly said, "My room is upstairs. Hold me tight." Bending down, hooking his hand, List directly picked up Dunike from the crook of his leg. He operated his chi and his legs were like springs. He quickly walked through the corridor and went up the stairs to the 4th floor of the castle. He did not respond to the servant who greeted him on the corridor. He went directly to the door of his room. The door was not locked. In the Longtaro castle, the 4th floor belonged to the master's residential area. Bang! He closed the door with his foot. Everything was silent. When List woke up from his sore back, the sun had already risen in the east outside the window. Today was a rare sunny day. He sat up and saw the woman who was still sleeping soundly beside him. Her blonde hair was scattered on the pillow. There was a bad smell in the room. Shaking his head, List still felt a little unreal. A fur elise, 2 intimate dances, a few intentional or unintentional teasing words, and it was a crazy night. Recalling last night's scorching heat, he suddenly felt a little at a loss. In other words, for the first time in his new life, he had completely given himself away. He did not know if the movement of getting out of bed was a little too loud. Dunike, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly woke up and saw List putting on his clothes. She greeted him in a daze. "Hey List, what are you doing?" "Get up." List put on his pants and went bare-chested, revealing his perfect inverted triangle figure. He walked over to Dunike's bedside, leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Don't you want to sleep a little longer?" "I can't sleep." Dunike reached out and drew a circle on his chest. "You can call the castle's maid to come in and help you dress. On the battlefield, there will be no servant to help me dress. I like to do it myself. Only the complicated frack Abby will be handed over to the servant. Then I will call my maid in. I will also get up." Shaking the bell, he called the maid. With the help of the maid, Dunike found a new set of clothes and put them on. With the help of the maid, List also put on his frack Abby. The castle's servants brought the toiletries and helped the two finish the morning cleaning. When the maid left with the toiletries, only List and Dunike were left in the room. Dunike rushed over enthusiastically and hugged List's neck. "Kiss me like it's the last time you kiss me." Oh. After they separated, Duniko gasped and said, "I like the way you play Elise. I like the way you talk and your temperament. You have a different look in your eyes. I see ambition in your eyes that others can't reach, and loneliness that doesn't fit in with the whole world. What a keen sense of touch." List covered it up with a smile. "I guess you also saw a dragon. After all, my greatest ambition is to ride a dragon. I look forward to the day when you ride a dragon. If that day comes and I am not old, you are welcome to kiss me again at any time. So many people invited me to dance at the ball, but I only chose you, my dear Baron. Those people will be jealous of you just like those women were jealous of me when I took you away. It was so intimate. Liszt couldn't tell whether it was love or a moment of passion between him and Dunike. He just gently pulled away the other's hand from around his neck. I guess there must be a lot of broken hearts in Longtaro Castle. You know I have never been one of them, so I don't know. Chapter 265. Good morning, dear Duniko. Cousin Myopo got up early. When he saw the two people coming downstairs for breakfast, he greeted them with a smile on his face. Good morning, big brother Myopo. Duniko had been calling Myopo big brother to show the closeness of the two families. Myopo gave a thumbs up to Duniko and mouthed well done before saying, Liszt, I am glad to see you grow up. Such an obvious and crude ridicule made Liszt want to roll his eyes. However, he had already done it, and even Duniko was magnanimous, so there was no need for him to be bashful. He just changed the subject. Did Levis and Elvira get up? Elvira got up early. Levis got up a bit late. Last night, without any accident, he held the hand of an aristocratic young lady and talked about life and ideals late at night. After breakfast, the carriage of the Longtaro Castle was ready. Marquis Merlin, leaning on his crutches, arrived at the castle's gate and personally saw off his grandchildren. Not only were the three Liszt siblings leaving, but Aunt Melinda's family was also going back today. Grandfather, you must take care of yourself. I will visit you again after a while. Liszt said with some reluctance. Marquis Merlin didn't appreciate it. Don't act like a woman. If you want to leave, then just leave. The relatives greeted each other. Liszt saw Duniko, who was standing together with Myopo and smiling at him. Without waiting for Liszt to say anything, Duniko walked over and hugged Liszt. It didn't overstep the rules too much. It was just a simple hug that represented friendship between aristocrats. As for what kind of friendship it was, it depended on the benevolent. I thought you would play to Alice for me before leaving, she said. I was in a bit of a hurry. If you want to hear it, I will play it for you the next time I come to Red Crab Island. Will you practice it proficiently? If you have time. I don't think I'll ever forget what happened last night, Liszt, my dear. We will always have the memories of Longtaro Castle. Liszt smiled. It was indeed an experience worth remembering for a long time. At this time, if Duniko asked him to stay with a gentle and affectionate gesture, he might stay regardless of everything. He didn't care about Duniko's past. He only wanted to be with her in the future. He had learned the unrestrained ways of the nobles, but in his bones, he had the traditions of the Chinese. Unfortunately, he only said a few sweet words of love before Duni waved her hand at him. Without any hesitation, Liszt nodded faintly and boarded the carriage. He couldn't be more bashful than a woman. The coachman raised his whip and shouted, Go! The caravan slowly set off. Elvira retracted her head back into the carriage. She looked at Liszt, who seemed to be in a trance, and said with a smile, Why don't you look back at your rose with thorns? My dear brother, you were in the limelight last night. How many aristocratic ladies wanted to stay in your room with your fur Elise? Even Duniko was charmed by you. This is just a basic operation. Liszt thought for a moment. He leaned out and looked at the Longtaro Castle that was gradually getting farther away. There were still many people at the door. There were many aristocrats who left today. He couldn't find Duniko Hyacinth, so he sat back in the carriage with a touch of disappointment. He put his hands behind his head and leaned on the cotton cushion behind him. He didn't know what to say, but he couldn't help but say, There are so many castles in the world, and there are so many Baron in the castle, but she came to my side. He lost the beautiful fantasy of Athena Salmon, and gained the beautiful experience brought by Duniko Hyacinth. Liszt felt that he had a good impression of Red Crab Island. Of course, the bigger change was his mentality. It was like he was reborn. After a night of crazy baptism, he had truly become an adult, inside and out, from soul to body. Sapphire Calendar, January 6, 152, Sea Crab City Harbor. They boarded a ship from the harbor. This time, the Taro family used a fast sailboat and 4 ordinary brig escorts to escort the 3 siblings back to Coral Island. The ghost ship incident made Longtaro Castle not dare to be negligent. Count Sark had led the fleet of Red Crab Island to patrol the vast sea between Red Crab Island and Coral Island, eliminating pirates and searching for ghost ships. Standing on the deck, the cold sea breeze released Liszt from his beautiful memories. His attention was temporarily focused on another aspect. Where will the siren be waiting for me? It must be on the sea. After all, it was a siren. Maybe he would hear the siren's song during the voyage and then find the siren. However, he was still puzzled about how to get the siren. Legend has it that the good siren will use song to save people, but the body will never show up and will hide from humans. The evil siren will use song to confuse people and then kill them. In short, except for night novels, there has been no example of humans seeing a singing demon. However, even when sleeping on the ship, he would wake up from time to time. When the fleet entered the sea near Coral Island, he still did not hear any singing at sea, nor did anything strange happen. Until he landed at the pier of Coral City. There was no trace of the singing demon. It seems that the singing demon will be in the waters near Flower Town, no, maybe in the waters around Black Horse Island, waiting for me to harvest it. I just don't know how to harvest it. Will it be like the elf and need to sign a contract? He rested for a night in Tulip Castle. With a batch of specialties obtained from the Longtaro Castle and a batch of specialties obtained from the Tulip Castle, Liszt could not wait to leave early the next morning and return to the flower town that he had not seen for more than a week. White snow. The road was muddy. In terms of dimension, Coral Island should have a much higher latitude than Red Crab Island, so the temperature is colder. But so far Liszt has not figured out whether this world is spherical or whether there is a North and South Pole. As for the longitude and latitude of Coral Island, it is even more unknown. And there is one thing that is very puzzling. He observed the position of the sun and found that the height of the sun is basically the same in summer and winter. This shows that the angle of the location of Coral Island from the sun has not changed. In other words, there is no inclination between the orbit of the planet and the orbit of the sun. Unfortunately, there is no astronomer to solve my doubts. What kind of environment is this continent under my feet? He remembered the ancient legend that the Moon Empire had a profession called astrologer. It is said that the year, month, and day here were passed down from the Moon Empire's astrologer. Unfortunately, with the destruction of the Moon Empire, many of the technologies, discoveries, and inventions of that era have been lost. It became the fantasy of a few words in a night novel. Master, we have arrived at the Thorns Ridge. Thomas's voice interrupted Liszt's reverie. Sure enough, serfs working in the Thorns Ridge could be vaguely seen ahead. In this snowy winter, only the serfs of Flower Town had eaten their fill and had the strength to go out to work. Suddenly, a feeling of returning home emerged in his heart. Gold or silver nests are not as good as my kennel. In Flower Town he is the supreme lord. Chapter 266. She's ready to give birth, my lord? Old Defoe carefully hid from the cage and pointed to the part under Stupid Woman's tail. Liszt of course knew that Stupid Woman was about to give birth. His quest and quest reward were about to be born. Looking at the simple and crude shack in the dog prison, then looking at the fluttering snowflakes outside as well as the cold weather, he couldn't help but say to the manservant, "Thomas, bring 2 blankets over." "Yes, my lord." Stupid Woman lay on the wooden board and watched the servants around her clean up. She was no longer as smart as she used to be and became lazy and dull. This is probably the case for any beast that has been locked up for a long time. Dosen circled around it and licked its fur from time to time. It wasn't known whether it was the effect of the low winter temperature or the complete transformation of its bloodline. Dosen no longer needed to vent and returned to a calm state. After many days of abstinence, he didn't even want to go to the dog farm. Will it give birth to Dosen's offspring? Paris, who was much more plump, stood outside the cage and asked curiously. Of course there is no third flying dust dog here. In such a big flower town, it was impossible to find a flying dust dog that would give Dosen a green hat. Paris rolled her eyes. No, Lord Baron, can it give birth to the same intermediate World of Warcraft as Dosen? Maybe, maybe not, but I hope that the offspring of Dosen and Stupid Woman can become intermediate World of Warcraft so that I have a large group of intermediate Warcraft and can form a flying dust dog orders of chivalry. Liszt's heart was burning. They will become the cornerstone of my career and bring me countless glory. Sigh. Paris sighed. Why does every noble lord think about war? Because the world is not yet at peace. He directed the servant to throw the quilt in the cage and drove Stupid Woman to the quilt, then turned his head and responded, "Someone needs to stand up and turn the tide, to create a world without hunger, harm, and oppression. Will you stand up? The target is too big, so big that even I am afraid." As a transmigrator, who didn't have the ambition to change the world. However, the reality was that he could only change the small flower town. Therefore, I might as well start with the small goals around me and achieve them one goal at a time. So what is Lord Baron's first small goal? Paris asked curiously. Ride a dragon. Liszt drew a beautiful arc and looked up at the gloomy sky. He suddenly thought of the morning in the Longtaro castle, and the promise Dunico made to him. His teasing tone could not help but become solemn. I want to ride a dragon when I am still young. At first, Paris thought that he was joking, but after hearing him say it so seriously, she suddenly felt that the tall and handsome country lord in front of her might really have such ambitions. She felt ridiculous. She had seen the light dragon, the evil dragon that gave her the identity of the black dragon. That incredible figure was full of despair and horror. It was impossible for a mortal to control a dragon. However, she was looking forward to the day when Liszt could really ride a dragon and become the dragon knight that would make many women lose control of their orgasms at the mention of its name. Perhaps it was because she had seen the incredible dragon, the dragon knight became more and more unfathomable and unimaginable in her heart. Don't just stand there, let's go. After Liszt finished bragging, he had already walked out of the iron cage. Stupid woman should finish giving birth in these 2 days. Paris came back to her senses. Oh, okay. She looked a little silly. This made Liszt very speechless. Sure enough, a comfortable life can kill people's fighting spirit. The mercenary thief who shouted to kill the nobles and dared to cross the sea to save her sister has now become a gluttonous, fat, and not very smart female attendant. He wondered how much her fighting power has fallen. Wow. Wow. Sensing Liszt's return, the thorn sprite Ella, who lived in the castle, flew directly out of the insect house and accurately landed on the head of Liszt, who had just entered the castle gate. It missed Liszt very much. Liszt felt the sprite's emotions and felt very warm. He let Ella sit on his head and grabbed his hair with both hands. Master, do you want to take a bath first or meet the town officials first? Butler Carter came over and asked. First meet the officials, deal with the accumulated affairs during this time, and then take a bath. Yes, master. Previously, when Liszt returned to Flower Town, he did not even enter the castle, but went directly to the dog prison to visit Stupid Woman and the flying dust pup in her belly. The town officials who were notified quickly came. After the polite greetings, they began to report their work. It turned out that even without Liszt's personal supervision, the development of Flower Town was still running. Wastelands were being reclaimed every day, not only in Thorn's Ridge, but also in the wastelands of the settlements. The bone tools of the bonesmith shop were produced every day and distributed to the serfs, making the serfs eager for this year's farming and eager to take over a few acres of wastelands. Stones were mined every day. Complete large stones, after simple polishing, were stacked in one place. These stones would be used in the construction of major projects in the future, such as Liszt's new castle on Black Horse Island. Small stones were broken into stones and used for paving roads. The Knight Square had been built, and the children had a warm training place. The 2 bathhouses had become the Flower Town signature. Even the aristocrats of the North Valley City had come a few times just to take a bath in the hot spring-like baths. The ice house had begun to store ice cubes, and was currently filled to the brim. In short, today's Flower Town was peaceful. This made Liszt very pleased. The territory was on the right track, and his team of officials was gradually taking shape. However, there was also a sense of loss. It turned out that things could not run without him. From the beginning of the celebration banquet to the celebration of the New Year on Red Crab Island, Flower Town had not been in chaos for about half a month without his hosting. Should I sigh that I don't have to do it myself, or should I sigh that I only need to be strategic? In any case, this was a good thing. The Lord enjoyed and his men ran errands. This was the mainstream rhythm of daily life. Of course, there were still many things he needed to care about. The most important thing was that the smoke missions could not be stopped. This was the biggest help to his dragon riding. Consultant Gort, have the ingredients for the ice and snow flame mushrooms been successfully developed? It is close to success. Several serfs have successfully planted ice and snow flame mushrooms in their own greenhouses, but the output is unstable and the growth effect is still poor. Let them continue to work hard. Yes, my lord. The planting of ordinary flame mushrooms cannot be delayed. By the way, has Mr. Elkson been here? He came once and heard that you went to Longtaro Castle to celebrate the new year. He just took a bath in the public bathroom and went back. Contact him and ask him to come as soon as possible. Lisz said. The flame mushroom magic potion in his hand was about to run out, and he needed Elkson to make a new batch. There were also fast-growing magic thorns that had been harvested and sealed in the castle warehouse, which could also be made into magic potions for use. Since the construction of the town did not require him to do it himself, he would use his free time to practice. Chapter 267. By the Sea. List rode Black Dragon from the pier named Flower Harbor along the seaside to the southernmost beach, but he didn't hear the singing of any sirens. He had already rewarded the siren, but he couldn't find the siren, which made him a little annoyed. He was going to wait for the flowers to return from Black Horse Island. He was going to patrol around Black Horse Island and try to find the singing demon as soon as possible. But before he could see the flowers, the good news to celebrate had arrived. Stupid Woman had begun to give birth. He immediately rushed to the dog prison and brought Trembling Woods along with him. When he arrived at the dog prison, Stupid Woman had already given birth to a puppy. It was lying softly on the quilt, covered with black fur. Stupid Woman rarely broke out of World of Warcraft and bared her teeth at List and others. Even when Dosen wanted to get close to her, he was scared away by her baring her teeth and roaring. "My lord, animals like cats and dogs are very fierce when they give birth. They won't let people get close to them. You have to be careful that they bite." Old Defoe explained. List understood this. This was the mother's instinct to protect her cubs. So he just stood outside Stupid Woman's warning range and watched her give birth. The black puppies that didn't open their eyes were his great wealth in the future. Without human help, Stupid Woman knew how to deal with it. Every time she gave birth to a puppy, she ate the placenta and licked the puppy's fur clean. Intermittently, Stupid Woman gave birth to 8 black puppies before she finished giving birth. Seeing that the 8 puppies began to compete for Stupid Woman's milk, List felt that he had to find a way to take the 8 puppies away and feed them with the milk of the dragon cow. Obviously, Stupid Woman's milk was not nutritious enough. It was impossible to cultivate intermediate World of Warcraft with this kind of milk. Dosen, stay outside and don't move. He stopped Trembling Woods from rushing in, then took out the dried meat and fresh milk that he had prepared. First, he approached the cage tentatively. Stupid Woman still had a bad temper after giving birth. When she saw List approaching, she grinned and growled. However, after List casually threw a piece of delicious jerky over to him, List's eyes widened. It immediately picked up the jerky and wolfed it down. Seizing this opportunity, List took a few steps forward. When Stupid Woman growled again, he threw the jerky again. After several repetitions, he had successfully entered the iron cage and stood beside Stupid Woman. If one were to ask if he was nervous, he would definitely be. Although Stupid Woman has forgotten the Rockthorn's magic, it is still a World of Warcraft. If it explodes and hurts people, List might get hurt. He thought he had the ability to protect himself, but if he was bitten, it would be no laughing matter. He had never heard of rabies, but what if it existed? Without rabies vaccine, he didn't know if fighting energy could kill the rabies virus. Therefore, caution was necessary. With the jerky to smooth Stupid Woman's teeth, List took out the milk, put it in a jar, and handed it to Stupid Woman. Stupid Woman smelled the milk, a little puzzled, but still stuck out her tongue to taste the milk. Then she stuck out her tongue and licked it. Even when List reached out to touch a puppy, she didn't care. So, List put the squealing puppy next to another jar of milk and pressed its little head to let it drink the milk. But the puppy just didn't lick. Fortunately, he was already prepared. He had already asked someone to roll the leaves of the fragrant coconut tree into a tube that could be passed through. The tube was gently placed in the puppy's mouth and let it suck the tube. Out of instinct, the puppy took a sip and then began to crazily suck the milk. Not bad, one down. List was full of a sense of accomplishment. He could predict that when the puppy liked the milk of the dragon cow, it would never try Stupid Woman's milk again. Maybe Stupid Woman would have milk, but the current Stupid Woman's milk was obviously not rich enough. As long as the puppy didn't drink it and didn't stimulate the secretion of the mammary glands, there probably wouldn't be any milk. That's it. He calmed Stupid Woman's mood with jerky and milk while teaching the puppy to suck the milk through the tube one by one. Probably because she had been tamed for too long, Stupid Woman's mood calmed down and she didn't care much about her puppy. Even if List picked up the puppy and pretended to take it out of the cage, it just looked up and didn't respond. My lord. Stupid Woman may not have learned how to be a mother dog. Her mother instinct doesn't seem to be very strong. Old Defoe has raised dogs for many years and has seen many dogs disdain their puppies. Although Stupid Woman was not disdainful, she was not so crazy about protecting them. Then take all the puppies directly. After the decision, List carefully removed the puppies one by one and handed them to the servant to carefully put into the dog cradle wrapped in quilts. Stupid Woman watched the whole process without saying anything. The 8 puppies were taken away smoothly. List breathed a sigh of relief and suddenly felt that it was too cruel to do so. He asked the servant to bring in a new quilt and replace the one that had been stained with blood. He also left a lot of food for her to eat and drink and put Dosen in for the two to be intimate. However, stupid woman who had given birth to puppies had no interest in Dosen for the time being. So List had to take Dosen away. Well, Dosen, don't be cheap anymore. Stupid woman is not in the mood to mate with you now. I'll bring you another day. The 8 puppies smoothly moved into the second floor of the castle and were taken care of by List himself. According to the experience of taking care of Dosen, it will take at least half a month for these puppies to open their eyes. The growth of World of Warcraft puppies is somewhat different from the growth of ordinary puppies. Wow, look at how cute they are, my lord. When they grow up, they will become strong intermediate World of Warcraft like Dosen. They will protect Flower Town and fight for glory for my lord. Gort flattered Zhang Xian. Stupid woman's smooth delivery made the territory cheer. Dosen's excellence was in front of them. In the future there will be 9 excellent Dosen, so the future of Flower Town cannot be avoided. The knight's glorious blessing. My lord is a true son of glory. I can't wait to see the day when the flying dust dogs grow up. If they are trained well, they will become the best force on the battlefield. Everyone who hears the name Flying Dust Dogs will be afraid of your lordship. The last sentence was said by Ram in excitement. It was a very common flattery. However, it touched a chord in List's heart. Ram is right. If one day the Flying Dust Dogs show their strength on the battlefield, I will be famous for them. But what will others call me? Dog Sword Saint? Or Violent Earth Lord? Or the man riding the dog? The name was so bad that it was a serious blow to his personality. So he seriously told his subordinates who were flattering him, from the day Dosen became an intermediate World of Warcraft, he was no longer an ordinary flying dust dog. Now that he has offspring, I believe they will become the same intermediate World of Warcraft, so it's time to give them new names. The subordinates immediately cheered, "Please give them new names, my lord." Chapter 268. The blizzard beast in front of him was still very small, and List didn't have the time to take care of it all day. He just converted the recreation room into an air-conditioned room and handed over the burden of taking care of the 8 blizzard beasts that had not opened their eyes to the housekeeper, Mrs. Morrison, and the most careful maid, Maggie. Although the blizzard beasts were very small, they ate a lot. List drank the rest of the milk today, barely enough for them to consume. When they grow up a little, it is estimated that they will have to be fed with the dry milk powder in stock. After a busy day, the little blizzard beasts ate and slept, and there were no signs of early death. It seems that they can all thrive. The next day he got up early again to practice the night class and pulled Paris, who was getting fatter and fatter, to practice a lot of actual combat. His do chi surged, and only when Paris almost couldn't help but transform, did he end the morning class. He had long been unhappy with the lazy Paris. Instead of a monthly salary of 1 gold coin, he invited her to eat egg rolls. He said seriously, "Compared with your first actual combat, your strength has declined significantly. Your reaction, speed, and skill have all obviously regressed." Paris gasped. This time she had consumed a lot of physical strength. "Although I don't want to admit it, Lord Baron, your strength has been improving all the time." "Why do you think so?" "Because the flame on your sword is getting fiercer and fiercer, and your total amount of do chi is constantly breaking through." Although Paris had become fat, her cognitive judgment had not declined. Her strength had indeed regressed a little. She had to admit that the increase in weight had reduced her flexibility, but List's progress was the main reason for the one-sided battle. Without transforming into the Black Dragon Gang, when the light and shadow pull could not play a role, she was not List's opponent at all. Putting away the red blood sword, he glanced at Paris's undulating chest. List faintly nodded. "In the cultivation of chi, if you don't advance, you will fall back. I am indeed improving, but this is not an excuse for you to allow your strength to fall back. In a few days, I'm afraid that I will no longer be able to restrain your light and shadow. Even if you use an ordinary sword, you will not be my opponent." Paris was a little unconvinced but finally nodded. "I understand. I will train harder and strive to improve my strength so that I will not be pulled away by you." Seeing the mercenary come to her senses, List patted her on the shoulder with relief. "People always rely on themselves. Don't forget, you should set an example for your sister." In his eyes, although Paris had experienced many hardships, she was still a young woman in her 20s. And Paris twisted her body as if she wanted to avoid List's action, but she resisted. I'm going out. You don't have to follow me. These few days are your vacation. After List finished speaking, he turned around and left. He had to continue patrolling the beach and find his singing demon. Seeing List riding away with his retainer knight, Paris was momentarily absent-minded. She touched her shoulder unconsciously and muttered to herself, "It seems like Lord Baron likes skinny women. I should really eat less." Flower port. The flower has not yet returned, and List has not found the singing demon's voice. The singing demon is probably not in the waters of Flower Town. I should save money, buy another sailboat, and go to Black Horse Island to look for it. He raised his hand and thought, according to the current ship market price, an ordinary brig like the flower costs more than 500 gold coins. A better brig would cost thousands of gold coins, a better three-masted sailboat would cost at least 2,000 or 3,000 gold coins, and a fast sailboat like the Palace would cost at least 5,000 or 6,000 gold coins. In terms of fixed assets, List can afford to buy a good sailboat. His fixed assets add up to tens of thousands of gold coins. Not to mention anything else, the value of a space gem alone is immeasurable. However, a lot of wealth cannot be seen in the light of day. Liquidity is extremely scarce. The money to buy serfs was exchanged with mithril. Something like mithril had great strategic value and couldn't be bought with money. Every time you used it, you would have one less. Exchanging mithril for gold coins wasn't worth it. Let's save gold coins slowly. I have flower soap and flower wine is coming out soon. It's not far from making money. Snowflakes were still falling. The beaches on the coast were all white. However, the sea did not freeze and the waves continued to rush up and down. Black Dragon stepped on the snow on the shore and walked slowly. List's eyes wandered over the sea, looking for a place where the singing demon might appear, but the sea was clean, not even a plank could be seen. There were some seagulls that passed over the sea in groups, preying on fish in the sea. Maybe I can buy some small paddle boats first and train the fishermen of the oyster settlement to go to sea to fish. The seafood business has been depressed. The sea fish business, shrimp and crab business, should be able to continue for a long time. There are very few lords who go to sea to fish now. It was not uncommon to catch freshwater fish. Serfs did not dare to go to sea, but ponds and rivers were certainly not unfamiliar. Some migratory fish in the sea were also often caught. For example, lampreys, which were very popular with nobles, and salmon, a specialty of the salmon family, were all migratory fish. People often thought that this fish was the food given by the sea and the blessing of the night's glory. There were ferocious sea monsters in the sea, but the fish took the initiative to come ashore. If this was not a blessing from the sea and the blessing of glory, what else could it be? As he walked, he arrived at the beach near the fragrant coconut tree worm's grass. It was here that he had salvaged a shipwreck with keel-fixing technology and found 5 large chests of shipwreck treasures. Now that he thought about it, this shipwreck should be the ship of the Magic Goat family. The broken magic books should have been purchased by the wizards of the Magic Goat family. Even the 36D Spectre in the keel-fixing was stuffed in by the wizards. Maybe it was the work of Kurdish Truth. She has been studying soul-stripping technology, and the 36D should be the human soul she stripped out. Kurdish Truth and her ghost ship had already dissipated. Apart from the magic books, the goat's head flag, the bow of the ship, and the sapphire ring which he could not figure out, there was not much left worth studying. However, List still intended to keep the 36D Spectre. Maybe one day he would want to study lich technology. There were too many unknown secrets in this world. If he could live for 500 years, he would definitely be willing to ride his dragon and try to understand this world. This world was far more magnificent and fantastic than Earth. In the evening, List finally waited for the flowers to come back. Marcus returned with the flowers. At present, about 600 serfs have been immigrated to Black Horse Island, all of which are building the port town. Because there is no source of food, the flowers need to transport them back and forth. I didn't expect my lord to have experienced such a dangerous voyage. There really is a ghost ship in the world, and it is the ghost ship of Marquis Cohen that has long been destroyed. Marcus saw the night squad missing 3 squires and was very sad, but only for a moment. After seeing the 8 blizzard beast cubs, he was so excited that he couldn't help himself. The glory of the knights, the future of Flower Town can be entrusted to them. Teacher Marcus, the consumption of a blizzard beast like Dosen to raise is probably no less than that of a night squad. The current Flower Town is still struggling financially. We need to vigorously develop it. Chapter 269. After List filled the flowers with cargo, he set sail for Black Horse Island. So far, the flowers has sailed between Coral Island and Black Horse Island more than 10 times, but has not encountered any storms, so the calm pearl has never been used. However, with the calm pearl on board, the crew is full of confidence and List also feels at ease. When I go back, I will ask Elksun if he can make the calm pearl. Forget it, let's go straight to Glanny. Glanny is experienced. Although his temper is a bit annoying, for the sake of the quality of the calm pearl, I should ask him to make it. List stood at the bow of the ship looking around. He was looking forward to meeting his singing demon on the voyage. Unfortunately, when the flowers sailed to the dock named Black Horse Port, there was still no sign of the singing demon. What the hell is going on? My singing demon won't be pocketed by the smoke mission, right? He could no longer calm down. Putting aside those inexplicable fantasies of love and lust, the value of the singing demon itself is absolutely huge. At least with the singing demon, the ship will never get lost in the sea again. After unloading, it was already late, and there was no time to patrol the waters around Black Horse Island. List went directly to the king of the Black Horses, Lightning. When Lightning saw him, it bowed its head intimately and rubbed his arm. It did not forget its master who had conquered it. Carrying List, it galloped through the snowflakes. Black Horse Island was also covered with ice and snow. Only the part of the grassland between the 4 hills near the valley seemed to have geothermal heat. There was no snow, revealing the still growing pasture. The black horses were eating grass here quietly. Perhaps it was because they had seen so many people that they were no longer afraid of humans and just pretended not to see them. The burial ground between the Needle Grass Hill and the Ice Grass Hill was also covered with snow, but the potholes of volcanic glass and keel fragments could still be seen, as well as the 5 tall dragon bones. These 5 bones have not completely decayed and must have important value. However, List could not remove them, nor could he preserve them. He could only let them be exposed to the wind and rain. When Black Horse Island can be exposed, I must invite a magician to help me study these 5 dragon bones. However, I must first recruit a magician follower. The secret of the dragon bones must be kept as secret as possible. Any secret about dragons must be treated with caution. Never underestimate the people here, their great desire for dragons. Even a transmigrator like him could not resist the charm of a dragon. Marcus has drawn up a rough topographic map of Black Horse Island. He is not a professional cartographer, so the map is very simple, and he only knows the general terrain. Icegrass mounds, needlegrass mounds, sheepgrass mounds, and alfalfa mounds formed the terrain of the damaged crater ring-shaped mountain range. The inside was a grassland and burial ground, while the outside was a land of rocks and weeds. The dock and port town are located in the south of Black Horse Island. There are also some islands and reefs around Black Horse Island. In the southwest corner of the water, there were 3 small islands that were a few hundred acres in size. List named them Mangrove Island, Rocky Island, and Sandy Beach Island. Because Mangrove Island is densely covered with mangroves, Rocky Island is a weathered basalt pillar. Sandy Beach Island is very flat, full of sand, with only a few fragrant coconut trees. Outside the 3 large islands, there are sporadic reefs, most of which are exposed when the tide is low and submerged when the tide is high. The singing demon I am looking for is probably between the shore of Black Horse Island and these islands and reefs. List looked at the simple map and thought to himself. So the next day the sky was just beginning to brighten. He led Captain Costo and others and began to sail around Black Horse Island. Sir, in fact, in addition to Black Horse Harbor in the northwest corner of Black Horse Island, there is another area of water suitable for a dock. The depth of the water may not be as deep as Black Horse Harbor, but the width of the water is very suitable for ships to dock. Captain Costo commanded the flowers while acting as a guide. List nodded and said, "We will develop a new dock later. At present, Black Horse Harbor is enough." They walked and stopped, visiting the islands and reefs along the way. After a whole day they finally circled Black Horse Island and checked all the coastlines and surrounding islands and reefs. There is no singing demon. At night, resting in the newly built house in Port Town, List tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. He was upset and impatient. Did I go in the wrong direction? Why is there no singing demon? Where did my singing demon go? He didn't sleep well all night. But he was not discouraged and continued to lead the flowers to search the waters of Black Horse Island. This time they went further into the water, first of all, the 3 triangular islands. Because it was not easy to dock, they paddled ashore in wooden boats. The trees on Mangrove Island are dense. It is the kind of mangrove that can grow in seawater. Mangrove forest is a general term just like shrubs that not only have thorns but also some other small shrubs. Mangrove forest has not only mangrove plants, but also many other kinds of plants. There are many kinds of trees in the mangrove forest, and there are many varieties of mangrove plants alone. However, List doesn't know any of them, and the knowledgeable Costo only knows a few of them. They are all called in dialects such as mangrove bark, autumn eggplant, sea lotus, chicken claw, and so on. The mangrove forest with well-developed roots, as if growing in seawater, completely obscured the island inside. Unable to dock, List cast magic eyes and paddled around with a wooden boat. No signs of magic were found. In this mangrove forest, there was no singing demon, no potions and no sprite worms. The rocky island was even more clear at a glance. There was nothing there. Finally, there was the sandy beach island. The island was full of snow-white sand. When the wooden boat landed on the white sand, he only felt that as far as the eye could see, the blue sea, white sand, and a few tall fragrant coconut trees, the scenery was so beautiful like a fairyland on earth. However, List was not in the mood to appreciate it at all. He turned around and left with a cold face. "Sir, do you want to continue looking?" Captain Costo looked at List's face and asked cautiously. For the whole day today, this lord, who was usually noble but very gentle, had never had such a frightening scowl on his face. "Continue looking." List suppressed his irritation and said gloomily, "If you can't find it, then don't go back. Continue looking at night." Perhaps they couldn't find it during the day because the singing demon liked to hide during the day and come out at night. Sure enough, nothing was found during the day. The flowers went to the dock to replenish some lights and other supplies and continued to search. Tonight the weather was clear. A bright moon rose from the sea, dispelling the night and sprinkling a fragmented brilliance that flickered with the waves. List stood at the bow of the ship, not the slightest bit sleepy. Whenever he passed by the island reef, he cast magic eyes to observe the signs of magic around the island reef, trying to find the existence of the singing demon. The first half of the night passed in a flash, and the second half of the night was about to set. Seeing that nothing was found, the anxious List was about to give up. At this moment, his ears twitched. An inaudible song came into his ears. When he listened carefully, he couldn't hear it again, as if it was just an auditory hallucination. But he didn't think so, because the slight singing was full of resentment, admiration, and weeping. Just listening to it, he felt the sadness in his heart arouse. It was not an ordinary auditory hallucination. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.